we back, and we back, and we back, and we back. What's up, everyone? It's Mack and Black, sports stream, weekly sports stream. Usually weekly, but if everyone's healthy, it's weekly. But you know how it is. Life gets in the way, and
dude. Steve had cooties last week,
and I did.
Steve off the cooties.
And I don't know what Steve gave me on Tuesday, but I was like, woke up coughing a lung, and I was just not in a good position. But we are back. That's all that matters, guys. Thanks again for checking in. Mack and Black, weekly sports stream. We talk everything sports every week, giving you the raw deal. You know, you're not going to hear no ESPN takes on here. We're going to give you the real. So, again, thank you for watching and listening. For those of you that are streaming on Facebook Live, you can also stream on YouTube Live. And if you're on YouTube, you can stream on Facebook Live. Also, this is an audio format. So the only reason why you guys are watching really is because you want to see our very handsome faces. But otherwise, if you guys are more in the audio realm, we're on pretty much every single audio podcast platform. Apple Podcasts, that's how I listen. I know we're on Spotify. So there's definitely different ways to consume the show. So please do us a favor. And like, subscribe, share, continue to tell friends and family about us, because we definitely want to talk to everyone. And again, get involved in the chat room here, no matter where you're at, YouTube, Facebook, whatever it may be. And again, it's Mack and Black, but you can search us on YouTube, Mack and Black, and you know, you'll find us there. Again, Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much everywhere you can find audio podcasts. Do us a favor, guys. Man, Nick, it's tough to be a Bears fan.
Hey, you know what's funny about free agency? So before we just came on, I just broke that King Galladay just signed with the G-Men 4 years. It was 4 years, $72 million. I think 36 of that is guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So the Giants are trying to make moves. But dude, I actually kind of want to hear, because I've seen a lot of Bears fans right now like really jumping ship. Like I've seen some guys, you know, claim they're going to root for the Buffalo Bills now.
Oh my God.
And the Bills just signed Mitchell Trubisky as the backup to Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of Bears fans becoming free agency. So with you being the I kind of got a theory to an extent of maybe what's going on, but I want to hear what your thoughts are on this whole Bears debacle, because you ever seen the memes, like the what you thought you were getting versus and what you got and it's become like a wish meme. Yeah. Like, you know, here's Enrique Iglesias, and here's Enrique Iglesias on Wish, and it's like some, you know, fat from the middle of Mexico kind of guy, and he's from Wish. That's what I'm talking about with the Bears, because 2 weeks ago when we were on the show, we were talking about Russell Wilson, and you had texted me and said that Russell Wilson had defollowed out of Seattle and this and that. And the same thing that happened with, what was it, the Matthew Stafford trade? Is what
Deshaun, and we're like, maybe Deshaun now.
Right. And
nothing. Well, let's start. Let's start here, because I want to start at the very beginning, right? The very beginning of this whole thing was the end of the season, and all of us as Bears fans collectively saying, that's it, no more Mitch Trubisky, we are going to move on, we are going to upgrade at the quarterback position. You know, the reason why I want to start at the beginning is because I've been saying for the last year and a half, the Bears are going to be in cap hell after this season. And everybody and all my friends and everybody who thinks they know what they're talking about goes, oh, you're just completely out of your mind. They'll find a way to restructure some contracts, and you're not going to lose anybody. You know, you're going to have Mack and everybody else on the team that's making big money. They're going to restructure, and the Bears will be fine. Okay, fast forward. Now we're talking Stafford gets traded. We're like, oh my God, I don't want Carson Wentz. Wentz gets traded and moves to Indianapolis. And then Bears fans are kind of stuck to look at the options that are left, right? The options in free agency were very, very sparse. And then you look at some of the trade candidates and you went, I don't know, is this even possible? You know, what's it going to take? And all of this, right? So I think I jumped off the Deshaun Watson bandwagon pretty soon because I'm like, that's too much. We're not going to even come close to what they're saying they want for him. And then last week happens, or almost a week and a half or 2 weeks ago now. You start to hear a lot of rumblings on Twitter, on Reddit, and just in the internet sphere that the Bears are going for Russell Wilson. Seattle is listening. The Bears are making moves and adjustments to try and, make something happen. And then, Akeem Hicks is supposedly unfollows, the Bears on Instagram, and then Anthony Miller does the same, and then everybody just kind of going crazy. What's going to happen? And what ends up happening is essentially the Bears swung and miss. From what we, this is what we know, right? As fans, we don't necessarily know what happens. I don't necessarily believe what ended up coming out as being the package, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Yeah. But that was, we'll talk, because I want to get more into what that package means and why I think it's probably bullshit that was the package. But anyways. Right. We talk about sort of, okay, the Bears are making adjustments. They're going to do something. Ryan Fitzpatrick signs with Washington. And you're thinking, oh, my God, okay, well, that's one less guy. And pretty much everybody left is what? A backup, right, Nick? It's like, you're looking around the league and going, there's nobody left. We already have a backup on the roster, right? You have Nick Foles on the roster, and you're assuming this is going to be a backup guy or a guy who is going to be the veteran presence if you were to draft a quarterback. So then we hear the Bears made their pitch. Seattle said no, and then Seattle was just kind of done. And then 2 days later, we see the Bears sign Andy Dalton. This is not – first of all, I want to start with this. This is not about Andy Dalton. This is not about what he is as a player or is he garbage. No, he's not garbage. He's an NFL quarterback that's been in the league for a little while. But this was not what was promised to the Bears fans, and this was not what the plan was supposed to be going into the offseason. The plan was supposed to be the Bears are going to make a major upgrade at the quarterback position, and then they were going to try and find out if this team had what it takes to win in this league. And we start to see some of the movement, the restructuring, and you're thinking, wow, it's going to happen. And the next thing you know, 1 year, $10 million for Andy Dalton. I don't have to say why that's such an underwhelming move. I can just explain it to you. This guy was available last year. The Bears almost signed him last year. Instead, they traded a 4th-round pick to Jacksonville and got Nick Foles. So you traded a 4th-round pick. You brought in Nick Foles. You basically went ahead and said, I'm going to choose Nick Foles over Andy Dalton to be our quarterback competition with Mitch. Andy Dalton goes on to sign a backup quarterback deal with the Cowboys. Now, after a mediocre season let's think about, I just want to go through the weapons that the Cowboys have. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Ezekiel Elliott, one of the best offensive bookends in the league. I know their offensive line isn't the same as it used to be, but still one of the better offensive lines.
When healthy, it's one of the best.
And they have 2 really good tackles, which is really big in this league. And then you sign Andy Dalton, and the flood comes from the Bears fans because it basically meant that you're out of the Russell Wilson sweepstakes. You're paying $10 million this year to Andy Dalton to come in and be your quarterback. And also you have 2 of the same guys on your roster now. You have Nick Foles and redheaded Nick Foles now. That's what you have. You have 2 Nick Foles on your team, and the Bears basically are wondering, like, what's going to – so then you're thinking, you know what, okay, all right, we didn't get Russell Wilson, but at least now we're not going to lose Akeem Hicks. We're not going to lose Kyle Fuller. You get to at least say, okay, our quarterback situation is not better, but we're not going to tear apart the team now to have to get a better quarterback. And then that was very short-lived thinking because then you start to hear rumblings that Kyle Fuller, who, remember, Ryan Pace, the genius, came last year and was trying to create cap space last year and restructured Kyle Fuller's deal last year to basically make it a decrease on last year's salary and an increase on this year's salary. He was due $20 million, by the way, this year by the Bears. That is a pretty heavy cap number for a cornerback, even a cornerback at that level of Kyle Fuller. And then you cut Kyle Fuller to save $11 million in cap space. By the way, you just got done signing Andy Dalton for $10 million. So there is an absolute joke of a strategy here by the Bears. There was no sort of tact about what's going to happen, no backup plan, because now what I'm thinking is, what is the best case scenario, right, for a Bears fan, for the Bears team, is like, okay, well, we already have 2 quarterbacks on the roster. You can't even at this point, Nick, it's a waste to draft a quarterback with 2 quarterbacks on your roster like this. You have so many holes on the team now that it's a waste. And then next thing you know, they cut Kyle Fuller. Now you're hearing Akeem Hicks has been asked to seek a trade. They don't want to cut him. They would like to find something for him. And then on top of that, the whole Allen Robinson thing is happening. Allen Robinson is wants an extension. They couldn't get the extension done. They gave him the franchise tag, and he wasn't going to sign the franchise tag. But then all of a sudden, the Bears were in the news talking about Kenny Golladay was going to come in for a 1-year prove-it deal. And I'm thinking, I was just reading shit about how the Giants were talking about a multi-year deal. There was a couple other teams that were thinking about multi-year deals with Kenny Golladay. So, unless Kenny Golladay really wants to be a Bear, why would he take a 1-year deal over a 4-year deal with more guaranteed money and just more overall potential for him? So, now Allen signs the damn tag, and next thing you know, you're hearing Allen Robinson wants to play with Kenny Golladay, and, from what I hear, there's a lot of people saying that the offensive side of the ball is really not, they're not really that mad about everything that's happened, but the defensive side of the ball is really pissed off about what's happening with the Bears right now. So I want to pause there because the reason why I want to pause just simply because it's a lot to take in when it comes to what's happened over the last few weeks. But I think it all boils down to, this is a giant failure for Ryan Pace. An absolute giant failure of not only his tenure, but this season in specific, which is, by the way, his and Ryan, or him and Matt Nagy's last. I mean, I'm telling you, this is their last season. They are not going to be coming back and being on this Bears staff next year if they don't figure this out and win at least 10 games this year. That's not happening. In my mind, that's not happening. So, huge failure on their part. And it's not, listen, yes, Chicago has meatball fans. Nobody's gonna deny that. We are the king of meatball fans. But this is probably one of the times, and I'm curious to find out what your opinion is on this, Nick. This is probably one of the times where I look at meatball Chicago fans and I go, you're right to be a meatball fan right now and be mad about what's happened. But from an outsider perspective, because obviously, there's so much emotion involved with the Bears, and, this is our team, and we just want to win, and we want a quarterback. We just want a quarterback that's worth something, right? And and again, this has nothing to do with Andy Dalton, because he is a veteran in this league. He's been in this league a long time. But since 2016, I hate to break it to people, you know who has better numbers than Andy Dalton since 2016? Mitch Trubisky. So let's talk a little bit about that. But I want to get your opinion here from an outsider perspective. What was your reaction when you saw some of this stuff go down?
When I cut, well, first, my first reaction really was surrounded about the so-called package that was offered to the Bears, because first we were told that it was 3 first-round draft picks, right? Mm-hmm. And I was thinking to myself, if you're the Seattle Seahawks, if you have Russell Wilson that more or less is saying, everyone can cut me with the BS, because everyone's like, well, he didn't really say he wanted out of Seattle. He just said, if you were to trade me, which I find is the nice way. See, it's like that. It's like the mean mom, nice dad approach, right? Yeah. Where the mean mom, in this case, Sierra, goes to Russell Wilson and says, hey, man, I'm not really feeling this Seattle scene. Let's go somewhere. Let's go to Chicago or Vegas or Dallas, New Orleans, somewhere where there's more of a party-like feel. And of all those teams that we mentioned, Chicago's the biggest market out of all those we've mentioned, right? So Russell Wilson, coming in as the nice dad, goes to Pete Carroll and says, hey, man, look, like, I'm not saying I want out, but, you know, if y'all was really feeling like trading me, here's the 4 spots we gonna go. Russell Wilson wants out too. Russell Wilson's just not gonna be an asshole like Deshaun Watson, some of these other guys about it. So when I hear 3 first-round draft picks, my first thought is I would have bitten on that in a heartbeat. Because here's my initial problem. Because I hate when everyone's like, well, Nick, if you get the Bears picks, Russell Wilson goes to the Bears, those are going to be low 20 picks. Okay, but if Seattle sucks and they get a top 10 pick in their own right, you now have a top 10 pick of your own right, and you have the Bears bottom pick. You could trade up with that bottom pick if you want to. You could do what the Buffalo Bills did with their first-round draft pick and turned it into Stephon Diggs, and you saw how great Stephon Diggs was with Josh Allen this year. You have a lot of leverage when you have 2 first-round draft picks, whether it be low, whether it be high. You have a lot of leverage. So I thought that was nonsense. Then NBCChicago.com comes out and says that not only on top of that, the Bears were so desperate to get Russell Wilson in, they threw in Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks and said, we'll throw both of these guys in there. And Seattle still said no. So here's what I'm looking at. First off, that sounds eerily like the same deal that the Houston Texans are talking about with Deshaun Watson. And if you're going to throw that kind of package to Seattle and you're not going to throw that package to Houston, most people would look at that as the Bears being stupid. But I'm on the fence of saying that maybe, just maybe, I'm the same dumbass that came on this show and have said on multiple other shows that I am not as big as a fan of Deshaun Watson as everybody else has been. Because there's no MFing way you can tell me that this guy had DeAndre Hopkins last year, the same guy that many people swore up and down was the best wide receiver in the league, and the Houston Texans were still average at best. So you're going to tell me with all that offensive talent you had last year, and for Deshaun Watson to all of a sudden become this god of free, I won't want to go anywhere quarterbacks, you know, why wouldn't you make that offer to Deshaun, but you would make that offer for Russ? Because one's a proven winner and one's not. Like Bears fans can sit up here and cry the blues and talk about, well, you know, I find it rather insulting that you know, the Bears drafted Mitchell Trubisky over Deshaun Watson. But I would almost venture out to say, if I'm not mistaken, when's the last time Deshaun Watson won 12 games in the season? Mitch has.
But I mean, listen. I don't like that argument. You know, both of us don't like that argument of like, you should have drafted this guy over this guy, right? That's like crying. It's like crying over spoiled milk, right? That there's no productivity that comes out of that conversation. Would I have rather have drafted Deshaun Watson over Mitch Trubisky? Yes. Yeah, I would have. But I see what your point is. It's like, I think this idea that if you drafted a new quarterback, everything would be better. Well, you would still have the same GM, you'd still have the same head coach, you'd still have the same roster relatively. And you know, I don't know about you, but if you put Deshaun Watson on some of these Bears teams, maybe on that one that, you know, when the Bears made the playoffs and lost to the Eagles, maybe you can make a case if you put Deshaun on that team that they make enough plays to make it past the Eagles and possibly. But again, this goes back to like all these hypothetical scenarios that really don't exist in real life. And I think the main, first of all, about the Russell Wilson trade package, I don't believe that was the real package. I think, if you want my opinion, I think it was more so like, okay, we have the 20th pick in this year's draft. We're going to give you the 20th pick in this year's draft. We're going to give you our next 2 first-round draft picks. To me, that's very feasible. But then the idea that they were going to give up another 2 mid-round picks, Khalil Mack, possibly another defensive starter, maybe Roquan Smith, I don't believe that. I think the package was going to be 2 to 3 first-round picks, another mid-round pick, Akeem Hicks, and Kyle Fuller. The problem with that is that the Bears have absolutely no leverage. They did not have any leverage in that deal to say, you know, Seattle, you're getting a real good deal out of this, because in Seattle's mind, Russell gives them a chance to win every year. And And no matter what happens with this roster, which, by the way, Seattle has gone out of their way this year, or the last week or so in specific, to improve their roster. Got some offensive line help, re-signed Chris Carson, trying to improve the defense. Because I think part of the reason why Russell's so frustrated is some of the moves they've made, like the Jamal Adams move, and some of the moves that they've made have not taken into account him and his side of things and how he is going to handle things on offense. And we saw it last year. They came out like gangbusters the first 6 weeks. Everyone was thinking Seattle's a Super Bowl contender. This is a team that can compete with anyone. Who cares if the defense isn't that great? Russell's in there. And in reality, that's bullshit. That's complete bullshit, because Russell cannot do it by himself. And what ended up happening is the defense was terrible, the offensive line was terrible, and next thing you know, Russell is getting hit, and they don't make it past the Rams in the playoffs. Which, by the way, the Rams were, had a great, basically the opposite of what Seattle was, an absolutely stout defense, one of the best defenses, and a quarterback short of everything else. So the whole trade thing, though, and I'm curious about your opinion on this too, because, like, I get it, right? You're not going to always like. That's the thing that kind of bothers me, is everybody's expectation is like, well, if it's not Andy Dalton, what else were you going to do? What else were you going to do? Well, I mean, there's 1,000 things we could have done. There's 1,000 things we could have done. And this is what my biggest pet peeve about free agency is, like, somebody signs somewhere else. Ryan Fitzpatrick signs with the Washington football team, and then the reports a day later, the Bears were in on Ryan Fitzpatrick. What does that mean?
Those same reports came out about Jameis too. After Jameis re-upped with the Saints for 1 year, $12 million. Word on the street was the Bears were very aggressive in trying to get him. But I think with Jameis, he's so gung-ho to prove to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers they made a mistake that he's going to stay down there, and I think he's going to rue that decision. I think there was much better places he could have gone, like Pittsburgh, I think, was one. Indianapolis could have been one. Chicago would have been another one. Yeah. Denver would be a great one. But he's so gung-ho to stay down there, and so, yeah, I'm with you on that, because I heard the same thing too. Like, as soon as remember, they were kind of somewhat aggressive in trying to get Carson Wentz, and that fell through. And then supposedly they were in on Ryan Fitzpatrick, but he signs with Washington. And Andy Dalton even came out and said that the reason why he signed with the Bears, because they promised him he would be the starting quarterback. So you guys already know that Andy Dalton is your starter, because these two fools. Dude, have you ever played Madden? Oh, which one was it? I want to say it was either like 96 or 97. And in that mode, it used to be like franchise mode. And there used to be certain times where, unless you won the Super Bowl, if your overall record sucked, one loss and your season was over with. Like, you were going to get fired, right? And that's where I feel like Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace are at. I think Bears fans at this point, I don't want to should say that this season is probably going to end up being a wash, but there's two thoughts that come in my mind. First off, I look at the Chicago Blackhawks, right? And I don't wish no ill will on anybody. But remember how Bill Wirtz was more or less just running the Blackhawks in the ground. Mm-hmm. And this idiot really thought that by not showing home games on TV, it would make people go, instead of just putting a better product on the ice so people would come and support your hockey team. You thought that the smart thing to do was not show home games so that people would go to show. It's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. But the minute Bill Wirtz passed away and Rocky Wirtz came on, he threw that nonsense out. Then he turned around and ended up bringing in Taves, drafting Kane, and bringing in Hossa, and doing a lot of other things. And the next thing you know, the Chicago Blackhawks have won 3 cups in 6 years, right?
Yeah.
I think the Bears are kind of in line on this, because, and I'm not wishing for Virginia McCaskey to pass away, but something has got to give to open somebody's eyes, because there's no way Virginia McCaskey can't be sitting in her chair as the sole owner of the Chicago Bears and look at Ted Phillips, Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, and this Chicago Bears front office and say, you know what? I think one more year with these guys, we're going to break through. How, Sway? Because you've gotten worse since you went 12-4.
Yeah.
You've gotten worse. Okay.
Yeah.
You have not even sniffed double-digit wins since the 12-4 season.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've seemingly regressed. But for some odd reason, in your senile mind, you think that these two gentlemen, three, in Phillips, Pace, and Nagy are going to get the job done? Like, look, dude, just look at the offensive holes the Bears have. You have no second wide receiver. The jury's still out on Cole Kmet. Obviously you have a veteran quarterback that still hasn't won any playoff games, even though he's been there like 5 times. The offensive line is a mess. You probably need another running back to complement
Montgomery.
Montgomery.
Yeah.
So like the Bears have so many holes. So it's just like if I'm Russ and I'm like, yeah, I want to get out of Seattle. Sure, I'd love to play for Chicago. But if you move to Chicago and the same issues that you were woeing about in Seattle, you damn near were going to woe about here in Chicago, because if Hicks and Mack were really in that deal, dude, you're in almost worse shape now than you were in Seattle. So yeah. I think the Bears are not a team, in my opinion, that is on the cusp of this championship. Maybe they were a few years ago when they were a double doink away from going to the NFC, what was it, the title game? Or no, it would have been the divisional round. Right. Yeah. Right. So you were a double doink away from going to the divisional round, but you haven't done anything to get better than that. There's just so many holes offensively. And now you basically had to cut, as Paul had mentioned, you basically had to cut Kyle Fuller to sign Andy Dalton. And there's not a Bears fan alive that's going to co-sign with that. Yeah. So I expect the Bears this year, unless they make some miracle moves from now until training camp starts, and that's including the draft, like do you expect this team to be any good? I mean, I'm expecting a top 5 pick for the Bears to look at whatever quarterback, to bring in whatever coach, and bring in whatever GM they have to, because dude, this team's a mess. This team shouldn't be that bad. And then by the way, let me take another shot at idiot ass Packer fans who were like, oh, Kyle Fuller would look great in Packer green and yellow. Yeah, because like he's gonna win up there too. Like the Green Bay Packers are all of a sudden this team of destiny over the last 10 years.
Well, remember in 2016 when Kyle was a restricted free agent, the Packers actually signed him to a 4-year deal that the Bears ended up matching because they were so scared that he was going to leave. So Kyle actually, I see why they say that, but I agree with you. It's like in terms of like Kyle Fuller, I'm not sure if he wants to go there. I don't know him, but also I think Paul makes a good point. He says, things will never change in Chicago until Ted Phillips is gone. Ted Phillips is a problem. I agree. Listen, man, I don't want to rag on Virginia McCaskey. She is barely even there. Like, I'm sorry. When you're that old, she's not looking like, let me look at the structure of our organization and see.
Right.
Like, to me, she just like getting fed by some, poor caretaker and just barely even able to lift a glass of water. This is all about Ted Phillips. This is about the fact that the McCaskey family and Ted Phillips, I don't know if he has naked pictures of somebody in that family or something like that, but this dude has stayed around and has been around for a long time, and nobody seems to actually know why. Actually, the only reason people like look at Ted Phillips and go, he's a decent guy on the business side, he signs draft picks relatively quickly. That's the only positive you get out of it. The Bears are always one of the first teams to sign their draft picks. Whoop-de-doo. Like, whoa, right. We got our draft pick signed within 2 weeks. That's so amazing. Keep them around for 10 more years. So, you know the meme where it's like the dude putting on the clown makeup? And it's just like, and that's us Bears fans when we thought that Russell Wilson, like that, there was a 48-hour period where me and all my friends were kind of texting back and forth, this is happening, oh my God, the Bears are going to do it, what are they going to have to give up? Man, you know what, if we have to give up Mack, we have to give up Mack, it is what it is. But I think at the end of the day, dude, when I talked about that cap hell, this is actually cap hell, because there's like teams, like if you look at what there's a couple of teams that are in, like look at New Orleans, right? New Orleans was like 40 million above the cap. The cap for this year, and they found their way under. They made a couple moves, made a couple cuts, had to let a couple people go, restructured. Drew Brees retired. That really helped them. But the Bears are really in, because here's the thing. I see what Paul's saying about the whole they cut Kyle Fuller to sign Andy Dalton. No. It's even worse than that, Paul. They cut Kyle Fuller because they would have no money left to do anything else on this team. It has nothing to do with Andy Dalton signed for $10 million. That was a terrible deal. But the real issue is that they signed Andy Dalton to that $10 million deal knowing damn well they had a starting strong safety to put in there. Probably going to need another safety, another linebacker, another middle and outside linebacker. They have been doing their best to try and prepare the defensive line for the letting go of Akeem Hicks. And Akeem Hicks is like, I love him. He's one of the funniest guys in the league, and he's on Instagram like, yo, I don't care about all these articles about me, but can you at least get my good side? And it's just him like in this like pose, pretty boy pose. So I'm like, dude, I think everybody looks at this organization now and just laughs. And I think guys like Eddie Jackson, guys like Khalil Mack, guys like Roquan Smith. I mean, listen, Roquan Smith, by the way, guys, he's not locked up to a long-term deal. This is the last year of his rookie deal. After that fifth-year option, there's no guarantee he comes back and re-signs. Why would he? So honestly, man, it's all bad. It's all bad right now, because what happens? Well, the Bears had to cut Kyle Fuller, and they signed Desmond Trufant. And then you're like, all right, we're good to go. We got Desmond Trufant now. And it's like, have you guys not been paying attention to the league? Like, this dude got cut by the Falcons, signed with the Lions. Even the Lions didn't want his ass, so the Lions cut him in. And they need a cornerback. The Lions need a cornerback. And they said, you know what, we got this guy here, but we're good. And the Bears go, yeah, we got him. And I don't know what the money is on the deal. I'm sure the money's pretty low, and that's why they did it. But that doesn't change what just happened. I mean, we still need another corner, still need another safety, still need like more pieces, and it's just not looking good right now. So let me give you the scenario that I think people are trying to paint right now. What they're trying to paint is that the Bears are going to somehow find a way to make either a trade happen with Nick Foles or cut him. By the way, I've said this before on the show. You don't gain anything from cutting Nick Foles at this point. You don't save any cap space. There's no cap space that you can create actually pre-June 1st. Post-June 1st, it's like $2 million. So you don't really gain anything from letting Nick Foles go, and they haven't been committal about Nick Foles. So everyone's saying, well, they're going to move on from Nick Foles, and they're gonna trade up or draft somebody at 20. I've said it, and I know you probably agree. I think 5 quarterbacks are going to be gone by the time 20 hits. I really don't think. I think in the first 13 picks, you're going to see 3 to 4 quarterbacks come off the board. So
what year did what was it, 2018 or 2017? Is that the year of Allen and Rosen and Baker?
I believe
and
so.
Lamar? I think that was 2018, maybe.
So 2017 was the Myles Garrett year. So yeah, it's 2018. You're right.
2018. Yeah, yep. That's Baker, and then Josh Allen, and then I think that's Sam Darnold.
Yep.
And then that's Lamar Jackson. So that was 5 quarterbacks right there in the first 20. So Paul's saying, yeah, it's 2018. You're gonna see the same thing, dude. You're seeing the same exact thing. And I feel bad, dude. I feel bad for the Bears. Oh, that's the point I wanted to bring up, is because remember, I made mention of this maybe not around this time, because around this time last year we were unfortunately locked down COVID-wise. But yeah. I think it was a little bit before that when I started asking you guys, Bears fans, the question, like, how much longer is the window on Khalil Mack?
Yeah.
Because remember, I was the same dude that was on this show crying the blues, saying, go ahead and just trade Khalil Mack to Tampa. We'd run the 3-4. He thrive in the 3-4. And everyone thought, they were like, oh, Nick, you're crazy. You're just a homer. It doesn't make sense for us, blah, blah, blah. But, dude, every time you look up, Khalil Mack's name is still on the trading block. And I'm starting to wonder if the Bears are starting to realize, like, look, we love Khalil. He's been great for us, but it's just it's not working. But it's just, you're at a point where the Bears are going to have to go through one of those issues where they're going to have to suck for a little while. Like, they're almost going to have to go OKC Thunder mode. I still think it's ridiculous that the OKC Thunder, for whatever reason, thinks it's a smart idea to have 19 first-round draft picks in the next 7 or 8 years, which I think is absolutely is overdoing it. But I think the Bears need to put themselves in somewhat of a not overbearing extent.
Like a Miami Dolphins, almost like a Miami Dolphins type.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Where you're going to have to go on a fire sale and you're going to have to suck. But at the same time, like, okay, I'll give you another prime example. Look at the Yankees back in 2016 when they went on their fire sale. When they went on their fire sale a few years ago, they were still competitive. They weren't going to go anywhere. They knew they weren't going to win, but they were still competitive and went all the way to the ALCS next year. I think the Bears are in that type of situation where you may have to go a season trading Akeem Hicks, see if you can get a first or second round pick after him, or maybe multiple picks down the road. If you could trade Khalil Mack and get maybe a first round draft pick or some picks down the road, or whatever the case may be, because the Bears have so many glaring holes that trading Hicks and Mack and multiple first round picks, whether you believe it or not, to Seattle doesn't necessarily make the Bears better. It just gives you a competent quarterback. But now you have two huge glaring holes in defense, and I don't know, it just seems like the Bears are kind of between the rock and the hard place. Yeah. And I feel like the Bears are like one of those. The Bears are almost like the way they talk about the Knicks. Like, when the Knicks suck, everyone's like, oh, it's so bad. New York, needs to get back to being good. It's good for basketball. I think the Bears, being one of the prominent franchises and one of the older franchises in football, it's kind of good to see Chicago and Green Bay both be good, because it's one of the oldest rivalries in sports. But when you have Aaron Rodgers pretty much dominating the Bears for many years, consecutively, simple because of the fact that the Bears don't have a quarterback that can go head-to-head against Aaron Rodgers, because it's not like Green Bay's defense all of a sudden just gets these jolts on how to beat the Bears. It's just the Bears offensively can't go toe-to-toe with Green Bay.
But that's why I kind of disagree with you about if you brought in Russell, that would just mean you tore apart. Yeah, you did tear apart a lot of your team to get Russell. But here's my point on that. I don't think anybody would be complaining if you had to trade Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks and 3 first-round picks for Russell, because everybody knows watching this league, it's easier to replace a pass rusher and a defensive lineman than it is to do a quarterback, right? There's only so many quarterbacks that can play at a top high level, and if you have one of those, you're giving yourself a chance. Now, do you get super better by having Russell Wilson plus a mediocre defense? I don't know, right? Like, that's a debate that we can have about whether or not that would be worth it. But I think at the end of the day, the real question that comes out of it, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because there's so much NFL free agency stuff. I want to talk to you about the Patriots. I want to talk to you a little bit about what your Bucks did to bring back some people. But I just want to emphasize that the Khalil Mack stuff, at this point, first of all, we shouldn't even talk about it, because the Bears just restructured his contract, which would make it almost impossible for him to be traded because of the dead cap money. It's the same thing we're seeing with, like, Julio Jones in Atlanta. I think Matt Ryan had the same thing. The dead cap, trying to trade something like a piece like that just doesn't make sense. You're, like, losing way too much cap just to, try and get a little bit better down the line. So that's another thing that really bothers me. And again, like, I see what your point is, but my big thing is Russell Wilson, without even taking a snap, would have been the best quarterback in Bears history, right? So I think it's hard to, like, you don't have to rationalize that, because you've seen, even in your days of seeing Jameis, you saw a quarterback who has really high skills and the potential to put it all together to be an elite type of quarterback, right? He never put it together for the Bucs, but he had that skill set. And you looked at him and went, "Oh my God, this guy can throw for 30 touchdowns a year. He can make all the throws if he's on his feet and not on his back." And then last year, you guys get spoiled with Tom Brady, and I look at what the Bears were trying to do, and I compare it to what the Bucs tried to do last year. The problem is the Bucs had uber money last year to spend and bring in Brady. Not only bring in Brady, but then keep all of their pieces on the defensive side of the ball, make more additions to the offensive side of the ball. And then, by the way, by the time the season started, they were already ready to spend money on guys like Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette, and they started bringing more people in. So the Bears, as much as I want to try and compare to like Tampa last year, where Tampa, it's very easy to say as a Bears fan, well, Tampa, all they had to do was just sign Tom Brady, and next thing you know, they win a Super Bowl. Well, it's a lot deeper than that. It's a lot more complicated than that, right? It's like this Bucs team was ready from 1 to 53 on the roster to make that type of push. And very simply put, the Bears aren't there. And if you're a Bears fan, I'm guaranteeing you're going to temper expectations this year. This team will probably still win eight games this year. I really do think so. I think as bad as we want them to be, this is what NFL hell is. Not being bad enough to be in a top 10 pick, but still missing the playoffs and never being a Super Bowl contender. This is hell for an NFL team. I don't
like the Atlanta Falcons, for instance.
100%.
They're the kings of crap.
Yeah. And then you look at, but you know what's crazy? You look at teams like Jacksonville, you look at teams like the Jets, you look at like teams that are like at the bottom of the barrel, and you go, holy shit, they made some really nice moves. The Jets made some really nice moves so far in free agency. Jacksonville's made some really nice moves in free agency. And you go, holy shit, like, you almost look at them and you're envious of them, and you go, "Oh my God!" Like Jacksonville has stuff to be excited about this year. The Jets have the Jets. I'm telling you, man. It seems like we say this every year about the Jets, but I'm willing to say it again this year because my boy Robert Saleh is there. I really think the Jets are not going to be the laughingstock of the league this year. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff contender, but they're going to be good this year. I think they're going to be able to put it together. And before we move on from the topic, that's another thing that bothers me, Nick. You couldn't trade for Sam Darnold? You couldn't at least make calls and say, you know what, I'm not going to get Russ, but you know what, man, if I'm going to give up, if I'm in the business to give up draft picks and assets, you know what, man, I can give up a fraction of what I'm going to give up for Russ, and I could bring in a second quarterback here. And you know what? You can have Nick Foles and him fight it out if you want to. You can almost make that your draft pick this year, and then you can use the 20th pick to get a cornerback or another defensive piece, and then you can draft another receiver. But at the end of the day, what you've done here is handcuff yourself to Andy Dalton. If Andy Dalton doesn't work out, you are hoping and praying that the Bears are able to draft a quarterback. And I have, people that are like, well, even if the top 5 quarterbacks are gone, the Bears can still draft a quarterback. They could have done that in years past. There's plenty. Right. Listen, there's 40-plus quarterbacks that go into the draft every single year. You can draft I'm talking about drafting a good quarterback, a good prospect, somebody who can be a franchise QB down the line. And I'm not saying Sam Darnold is that, but, I mean, you can't even make a call and try and get Sam Darnold before you spend $10 million on Andy Dalton? It seems crazy.
And on top of that, just by that knowledge right there lets me know that I don't think the Jets are going to go quarterback at 2. Unless when the combine comes here and one of these guys just woos the piss out of them, I honestly really think that Devontae Smith is going 2 with the New York Jets. And I know that's early draft talk. I really believe that because I don't understand this logic that and I mentioned this 2 weeks ago. This is why and I blame all this crap on Patrick Mahomes. Because the minute Mahomes came into the league, took the league by storm.
Yeah.
So now everyone assumes that's now the blueprint.
Yeah.
Okay. If you draft yourself a quarterback within a top 10 pick, this man must get you at least to the AFC title game within 2 years, or this brother's trash. Never mind the fact that you had Never mind the fact that you had a piece of crap of a head coach in Adam Gase. Never mind the fact that your front office signed guys to a coaching staff that didn't want him there.
Yeah.
A la Le'Veon Bell.
Yep.
You signed Le'Veon Bell, then brought him Adam Gase, and then Adam Gase was like, I don't even want Le'Veon Bell on the team.
Yeah.
Okay. A guy who when he was trying to make his pitch on getting paid with the Pittsburgh Steelers brought up a solid point. When you talk about the top two when it comes to especially fantasy football, it was always Le'Veon Bell and somebody else.
Yeah.
It was either Le'Veon Bell and Adrian Peterson, or it's Le'Veon Bell and somebody from the Chiefs, like Jamal Charles for a little bit, or it's Le'Veon Bell and it's always him and some running back. They're always the argument. And I agree with them 100%. So you're going to tell me a guy that's always talked about being the top 3 running backs in the game you didn't want? And then you left Adam Gase there almost maybe 2 years too long. And now all of a sudden everyone's like, well, or not everyone, but Jets fans like, well, I want Justin Fields, or I want you to trade for Deshaun Watson, or how about you just actually have a good ass quarterback who needs a real coach and maybe some real wide receivers, because Sam Darnold was not this ass under Todd Bowles, and Todd Bowles is more of a defensive coach than he is an offensive coach. Think about that for a second. Because I remember watching Sam Darnold in that game against Detroit in his rookie debut on Monday Night Football, and albeit it was against Detroit, he made some killer ass throws in that game. You're not going to sit here and tell me he did all that beauty under Todd Bowles, and then all of a sudden the quarterback guru that is Adam Gase made this man look like a dumbass for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So that lets me know right there why if the Bears didn't make a call for Sam Darnold, or the fact that Sam Darnold isn't even on the trade block as hot as he was when the season was over with, because maybe Robert Saleh and whoever, I forget who he brought with him from San Francisco.
It was Matt LaFleur's brother. Is Matt LaFleur's brother, yeah.
Is probably saying maybe Sam Darnold is not a POS like Adam Gase made him out to be.
Yeah.
And maybe because they just signed a wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they signed a couple. They signed Keelan Cole and Corey Davis from Titans.
There you go, Corey Davis. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So you're going to tell me you couldn't have yourself – because remember, when Corey Davis came out in the draft –
he was a first-round pick. Yeah.
He was a first-round pick, and he was maybe the most underrated wide receiver coming out of that draft.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work out with Tennessee, because Tennessee's more of a run team than they are a throw team.
Right.
But you put him on there, Corey Davis, Devontae Smith, with Sam Darnold throwing the football. And on top of that, if the Jets have any money left over, I don't know what the Bucs are going to do about Leonard Fournette, but he could be out there. It would be a huge upgrade for you at running back.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think the Jets have a lot of flexibility. But the only reason I went off on that tangent is because when you mentioned Sam Darnold, I'm like, dude, his name got real ice cold in the trade talks as time went on since they hired Robert Saleh. And I think maybe Robert's saying just what I'm saying, like, dude, this is not a bad quarterback, to where we need to go out and draft Justin Fields at 2 when we have other holes we need to fill, and quarterback is not one of those holes.
Yeah, and before because I want to give an update on what's happened today in free agency, and I want to discuss with you a little bit more about what's happened over the last few weeks while we were gone, but I'm seeing like Devontae Smith is not very high on a lot of people's mock drafts right now. I don't really understand it. I see a lot of people who have Jamar Chase ahead of him. I see a lot of people who have Jalen Waddle, his own teammate, ahead of him. And I think right now, and I also see what's the tight end from Kyle Pitts, who's supposed to be a really good tight end. I also see him going ahead of Devontae Smith. So there's a lot of weird disrespect around Devontae Smith. I think a lot of people see him as a Alabama product and not necessarily the route running demon that he really is. Because I agree, I think he's one of the best, weapons in the draft. But he's constantly disrespected as far as his draft position for some reason.
And you would think that's BS, because let's name off some names: Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley,
Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy just came out.
Henry Ruggs.
All Alabama products. No. All have done pretty well in their careers in the NFL as wide receiver. So you're going to tell me that all of a sudden Devontae Smith is not worth it, though? Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's silly to me. And also, again, I also agree that it's not a given. I think a lot of people, including experts, think it's a given that it's going to be Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields 1-2. And I just don't see it. First of all, I think the Jets are more inclined to trade the pick than a lot of people think.
I think so too.
Because you have to remember that the Jets have assets. Like, the Jets are never in tough cap situations, right? So they have assets, and they spent a lot this offseason, and they have more to spend this offseason. And by the way, Robert Saleh has brought in some very specific guys. You know, Gerard Davis from the Lions is a really gritty middle linebacker that's going to really help that defense. They brought in some special teams help. They brought in some offensive line help. So, yeah, and to get you guys caught up on what's happened today, Keanu Neal, strong safety from the Falcons, signed with the Cowboys. They really needed a safety, and they got one. Marcus Williams, the standout free safety from the Saints, signs his franchise tender, so he will return to New Orleans. Same thing with the Jets and Marcus May, another playmaking safety. That just happened earlier today. Here's another thing that the Adoree Jackson stuff, where the Titans they cut Adoree Jackson not because they didn't want him, but he was hurt all year last year, and then he had something like an $11 million because he was drafted so high. I mean, listen, this is another thing that people have to understand. There's a reason why quarterbacks go higher and some of these more important positions go higher than stuff like cornerback, stuff like linebacker. It's because if things work out, great. But if they don't work out, you're going to be paying this guy $10 million because you drafted him in the top 15. And that's what happens with Adoree Jackson, where he got cut. But, like, to me, still one of the best returners in the league if everything, if he's back healthy. And then he wasn't that. I mean, the thing about Tennessee is they go through cornerbacks like hot cheese. Like, I don't know what's going. Like, they just cut another couple cornerbacks, and they're going to try and restart there. So, yeah, I thought that was odd, and that was the thing that bothers me. It's like, if you're the Bears, you went with Desmond Trufant, but you didn't even kick the tires on Adoree Jackson. I mean, because the guy's clearly going to make less than what he was supposed to make with Tennessee. You couldn't kick the tires and at least see if you could get a young playmaker to join this defense. It's just very hard for me to kind of believe exactly what they were thinking with that. But yeah, the Giants are in on Adoree Jackson. Apparently, the Eagles are also in on Adoree Jackson. This happened late last night. Juju is going to be returning to Pittsburgh. Apparently took less money to come back to Pittsburgh, and apparently Baltimore went all in on him, and he decided that it was just not going to be good for his brand to switch teams like that,
And the Jets were in on him too.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what happened when money talks. They're like, listen, you want Juju, here, come here, and you can. I kind of respect Juju in a way, because it's like, say what you want about the TikTok dancing. I thought he did distract the team. I think he did give a lot of teams bulletin board material, and I think that didn't really help the Steelers. But I also think, that's the type of guy I want on my team, to be quite honest, man. Right. I want a guy that's going to come back and say, listen, I want to finish a job with you guys. So I respect that. And yeah, we talked about the Kenny Golladay stuff. The Ravens are really interested in wide receivers and have struck out on pretty much all of them. They were in on Corey Davis. They struck out on Corey Davis. So with Kenny Golladay going to the Giants, and that's a big pickup for the Giants, by the way. I mean, don't sleep on these Giants, man, because remember, they did all that last year with no Saquon, with very limited help on the offensive side of the ball, and Daniel Jones was hurt, remember, for 5-6 weeks of the season too. Yeah. So don't sleep on those Giants, and they added a couple defensive picks too.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Especially if Evan Ingram can, I don't know, learn how to catch a football every once in a while.
And they signed Kyle Rudolph too, just in case he doesn't,
Exactly. So I'm with you. I think the Giants made some solid moves, but I want to go back to Baltimore real quick, because I wonder how much of that is Lamar and the scheme that they run. Mm-hmm. Because think about it. You got Hollywood Brown down there that has come out and is more or less has been frustrated with the lack of them running a lot of passing plays, because they're a run-heavy type of offense that fits the skill set better of Lamar Jackson.
Right.
So with you saying that they struck out on Juju, even though they threw more money at him, and Corey Davis decided to go to the Jets, I think a lot of that is on Baltimore themselves, because you're a run-heavy team.
Yeah.
So unless you're going to get you you're not going to get you a top-notch wide receiver if they know all you're going to do is run the ball 70% of snaps.
Yeah.
So I think that's what that is, because think about it. Let's say if it was Joe Flacco, or let's say if it was like Sam Darnold or some other. Let's say if it was the Indianapolis Colts that was putting that money up there for Juju Smith-Schuster, I almost guarantee you Juju would have went to Indianapolis.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I agree, because if you're a wide receiver, why go somewhere where your numbers are going to suffer?
Exactly.
And Juju also knows that, like, that's another thing that really is tough. When things are going well in Baltimore, they're not passing a lot, right? So, like, if you're going to go there to win, you're basically saying, I'm not going to really be too involved in this right here, right? And even like Dez Bryant came out and said it because he's doesn't want to come back to Baltimore. He's like, this isn't a good place for wide receivers to be. It's just not where you want to. And by the way, another thing on Baltimore, apparently extension talks aren't going too well with Lamar.
I heard about that.
That Lamar's team is like, you guys are way under what we're looking for right now. And I think, again, it's a little bit. It's a tough one with those quarterback extensions, because, they're going to have to make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league just to get him, to extend. And that's tough to see. Another big one that I think we didn't talk about was Titans signing Bud Dupree. That was a big loss for Pittsburgh, but at the same time, like, Pittsburgh's in a similar situation to where the Bears are. They needed Ben Roethlisberger to take this giant restructuring just to even have enough operating income to go out and make basic moves. So, they had to let go of Bud Dupree. He signed with the Titans, which is a big pass rusher for them. By the way, Kyle Fuller it looks like, very serious talks with the Broncos. His former defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. That makes a lot of sense to me, and the Broncos could get really good with. And here's another thing. I just want to mention this to people. Kyle Fuller's probably the best cornerback in the league that you've never heard of, because he gets constantly disrespected in the league because he's not in the same conversation as Jalen Ramsey. He's not in the same conversation as what you would kind of term as a quote-unquote shutdown corner. But this guy's one of the toughest sons of bitches in the league. He tackles like a fucking freight train, and he's a dog. And also another thing about him is he watches a lot of tape. He's one of those guys that's like a tape freak. He's going to watch the quarterback he's facing this week for 10 hours so he can figure out his tendencies, and that rubs off on the rest of the team, and that's just a huge loss for them. And I also, before we get too far into it, your Buccaneers really taught the Chiefs a lesson too about the lack of offensive line. The Chiefs went out and they cut Mike Mitchell Schwartz, who he's getting up there in age. They cut Eric Fisher, who wasn't he a number one pick? He was a number one pick. He was a number one pick, and that's a big cap. Not hit, but they saved a lot of money. And then on top of that, they go out and sign it was like 3 offensive linemen in the last couple of days, including Kyle Long, who came back, and I believe they got Joe Thuney from New England, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, they did. Yep.
So that was pretty good. But let's talk about your boys, because looks like Tom was happy to move some things around and extend himself. They brought back Gronk. They brought back Shaq Barrett. I think I'm missing a few there. Oh, Levante
David as well. Yeah. So. Yeah, it pretty much was the domino effect from Tom Brady, because remember, Brady and Mike Evans were both had not even so much was approached, but had come out and said that they would restructure the contracts if needed to be, so that they could save some money. And it looks like the only person that was really approached about it was Tom Brady. So he restructures his deal. And I guess like the last 3 years of his deal are all voidable years.
Right.
So he resigned. He's locked in till 2022, but I think 23, 24, and 25 are all avoidable years. So if he decided to retire, the Bucks wouldn't take like no huge cap hit for it.
It's cap gymnastics so that they can save money this year,
Exactly.
and still pay Tom what he deserves.
Exactly, because I guess Tom is, I think he's got I want to say he's either 20 plus or 30 plus $1 million of his contracts guaranteed. But I guess like his base pay this year will be like $9.6 million. So he already got the bulk of the contract, but to say the cap area, he took a lot less. So that brought in Levante David, who re-upped for 2 years. Chris Godwin went ahead and signed a franchise tag. I think that was like $13 or $14 million. I was hoping they could come out with a contract extension so that so it could free up some more money, but they went ahead and just went with the tag for now. I think they'll still get a contract extension because as long as Tom Brady's in Tampa, I don't think Chris Godwin is going to go anywhere. And that was another thing too, because everyone was coming to me, they're like, well, Nick, I know he wants to come back and play, but the man deserves to get paid too. Okay, well then I could say the same thing about Deshaun Watson. Here you are, quote unquote, securing the bag, but for all the money that you wanted to keep, you're not even happy with where you're at, and you technically, unless they decide to bow down to it, you can't go anywhere. That's why I don't understand the whole, like, I understand you wanting to get paid, but exactly what's more important, you getting paid or you winning? Right. Because not everybody has the ability to do both. Like the game just isn't worked out that way. Deshaun Watson, that's cool. You signed a 4-year, $160 million contract, but now you want to get traded to a team like would have been the Indianapolis Colts, or you want to go to the Jets where you have a better chance to win and still secure the bag. Nah, I don't know, dude. It's just crazy. But to get back to Tampa Bay, that also opened up the door for Shaq Barrett, because Shaq Barrett got a 4-year, $72 million contract. 36 of it is guaranteed. And I think his base salary is kind of on the low side. So I think his is kind of back heavy. A lot of these guys' contracts are back heavy. A lot of these guys got votable years. So in most people's eyes, a lot of people think that Tampa Bay has come out of the gate and has won free agency because they didn't lose anybody. Right. They didn't have to go out and, we didn't bring it. We re-upped with Ryan Suckup, and all Ryan Suckup did last year was go 28 of 31, and I think he was damn near perfect in extra points. Yeah. Ryan Suckup is one of the reasons why we won. Look how, as much as people like, I hate kickers in the NFL, look at 2019 Tampa Bay, look at 2020 Tampa Bay. We had Matt Gay as our kicker. Matt Gay missed a lot of kicks. Even though he was a rookie, he missed a lot of kicks. You bring in a veteran like Ryan Suckup, and Ryan Suckup, when we needed him in the clutch, was clutch for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah. So he wasn't leaving points on the board, something that we did 2 years ago. So that's just my thing with Tampa right now. I think all the main pieces, I'm not sure what they're going to do with Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette said he would like to stay, but he wants to be the workhorse. He wants to be the dog. But that's not going to be too easy. And then that's another thing, too. Bucks fans give me gas. Oh, we should just go ahead and let go of Leonard Fournette, but we could bring in James White. Why, when you have Keyshawn Vaughn, who did actually a really good job catching the football out of the backfield? No, you need another running back that can run the ball, because Rojo, as much as I love him, proved that he can't stay healthy for a while.
Yeah, he's a first and second down back.
Exactly. Yeah. And think about it like this too. Who was the man in those last like 5 or 6 games for Tampa? It was Leonard Fournette.
It was, yeah.
Leonard Fournette had the big run against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. He had the big run against Green Bay in the NFC title game. Yeah. And he had some huge runs and a touchdown in the game against New Orleans. Yep. So that's why I think when Bucks fans are like, well, we can get James White for cheap. James White can't run the ball. He's just a pass catcher, which we have in Keyshawn Vaughn. So I think it's more important for Tampa to bring back Leonard Fournette than it is to bring in James White. Because just like I keep hearing people talk about, remember we were talking about the OBJ to Tampa Bay nonsense?
Right, yeah.
That nonsense is going to die out.
Please.
And then there was something else that they were talking about Tampa was going to do offensively, where I was like, the James White thing is one that I don't co-sign on either.
Yeah, no.
So I'd rather bring back Leonard and do what we can do in the draft.
And also, that's not as cheap as you think it is. Like, people, like Tampa fans have to understand, like, you guys are right at, like, you guys still have to fill the rest of the roster, right? So it's like you guys are re-signing all these guys, and you still have to fill out your roster here. So AB is another interesting one, because I know AB is, I've heard rumblings about him, but are you guys thinking of? Have you heard anything in terms of bringing back AB?
Not yet. I would love for AB to come back, because as we've seen, Mike Evans has had injury issues, and actually for the first time in his career, Chris Godwin was more hurt this year than he had been for the last few years. Excuse me. So I think bringing in another wide receiver, a veteran wide receiver like AB, who knows the system and knows Tom Brady, because if you're going to bring in OBJ, not only do you have to trade assets for an OBJ, now OBJ has to get used to Tom Brady and has to get used to the system, where you have an AB who's already used to that. So I would rather them try to bring back AB. I want them just to bring the team back. The chemistry is there.
Yeah.
So if we can convince Leonard to come back, if we can convince AB to come back, and if we can convince Sue to come back, because Ndamukong Suh still hasn't signed yet.
Another one,
if we can get those guys to come back, I will talk so much shit about us running it back, because we have the core. Everyone's back now. So when you come into training camp, the only people that have to learn anything is the rookies. Tampa Bay, everyone knows the system. It hasn't changed. What's his name? Philosophy isn't going to change. Todd Bowles, Byron Leftwich, along with Tom Brady and Bruce Arians. It's not going to change the philosophy. Everything's the same. So it's just getting into football shape, refreshing the playbook, everyone getting on the same page. Tampa Bay can be very unstoppable in the NFC this year. That's why I think that everyone is so gung-ho about Tampa bringing everybody back, for those set reasons, because no one has to learn anything new other than whatever rookies are going to make the squad. So, I just really hope Tampa Bay can really, if I get news that they can secure Leonard Fournette at least, then I'll be okay with whatever happens with AB, but it has to be one of the two. It's got to be one of the two. Can't let both go. So either keep the depth at wide receiver and bring in or draft another running back to complement with Ronald Jones, or you're going to have to sign Leonard Fournette, maybe flirt with OBJ, even though I'm still not feeling it, or you could take the Buffalo Bills route and see if there's a wide receiver that wants to get out somewhere, like Hollywood Brown in Baltimore. Be like, hey, I got this 32nd pick, man. I don't want nothing to do with it, but hey, you can give me that Hollywood Brown and put him in the slot. Come on, man. Evans, Godwin, with Scotty Miller, big playmaker. Tyler Johnson makes big catches. With Hollywood Brown, that's got explosive ability.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And you got O.J. Howard coming back,
yeah, I was
too,
gonna say
by the way.
O.J. Howard and
that's a guy that a lot of people need to keep your eyes open, because if O.J. Howard stays healthy, I'm telling you, the combination next year is going to be Tom Brady to O.J. Howard, because they were both getting on the same page before O.J. got hurt. And I'm telling you, O.J. himself would have had at least 10 touchdowns as a tight end with someone that big, that explosive, and is that unguardable. Do not give up on O.J. Howard.
He's basically got like prime Gronk skills. Like when Gronk was just unstoppable for the Patriots with Tom, and they built that rapport. Tom was just slinging balls, and the only person that could catch it was Gronk. That's a lot of O.J. Howard.
A lot of O.J.
And I don't know about you, man. But my opinion, I think the next time the NFLPA and the NFL sit down for this deal, they got to do something about this restructuring of contracts. This shit is just completely bonkers, bro. Like, I tried to read about it, and I don't know if I'm just dumb. I still don't understand what the hell's going on with, like, I don't know if you saw the whole Taysom Hill thing, similar to like what you talked about with Tom. 4 years, $140 million, but every single year is voidable. So essentially, like, he's only making like $9 million, but like on paper, he's on paper for 4 years, $140 million. So, and apparently that somehow saved New Orleans something like $10 million in cap space. And again, I'm just like, I'm probably too dumb to understand it, but something's got to give, right? You shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't be able to sign a guy to a massive contract and then say like 2 years later, you know what, I want to restructure this so I have a little bit more space. So how about I just put a little clause in this contract here to give myself an out. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm with you too. But you know what? The funny thing is we're seeing a lot of this restructuring and cutting and whatnot because remember the cap only really went up.
Yeah.
$5 million from where it was last year.
It was supposed to go up like closer to 20, right? Or like something. Yes. That's what they were expecting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think next year we'll see that number go up significantly. But right now you're just seeing a lot of teams scramble because, COVID really put a monkey wrench in a lot of teams' plans. And now, I just feel like everyone's scrambling. Guys you wouldn't even imagine getting cut like Kyle Fuller, for instance. So and like Bud Dupree and how much he meant to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he had to be a cap casualty. So, we'll see. But, Phil's in the room and he's saying, the Giants are going to make a run. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. If they get, I think one of the quarterbacks I'm gonna have my eyes on this year is going to be Daniel Jones, because I think Daniel Jones, he's another one. New York can be so brutal sometimes because it's like, dude, you're not going to get the next Phil Simms, and you're not going to get the next Boomer Esiason in 2 years. Let the guys develop a little bit.
Yeah.
So everyone was so quick to give up on Daniel Jones, like, oh, he sucks. Dude, he's a rookie in the NFL. This year, I thought he made crazy strides. If Daniel Jones' vision gets better, Daniel Jones is going to be just fine.
And they've got to work on the offensive line too. That's another huge thing, right? Like we clown them for the Andrew Thomas drafting, over
missing out on Tristan
Wirfs and even Mekhi Becton. That was big. But if they can shore up the offensive line, give him more help, and also like the running game too. Like, let's remember. The reason why, I was watching the game that Saquon got hurt. It was against the Bears. Saquon
killed my fantasy, by the way.
I know, and mine too, in my keeper league. The reason why he got hurt is because like the dude's running for his life, hurdling defenders out of nowhere, and it's like if you could just give him a clear lane to get to the second level, this guy has a chance to be the best running back in NFL history. But it seems like he is just being relegated to having to make 3 guys miss before he can even get in full stride. So I agree. I think the Giants are a dark horse, especially in what is probably going to be considered a pretty weak NFC East going into this year. I know the Cowboys are trying to make runs that would allow them to be better and go back to the top, but I still think that's wide open, and I think the Giants have a really good chance because Washington, the Taylor Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick dude is just going to be, the real big thing with Washington has always been, are they going to be able to handle people offensively, because their defense is very good, but all they really need to do is find another weapon. So they signed Curtis Samuel, a close friend of Terry McLaurin, and that I thought was a good pickup for them. Another tight end for them would be a really big one, and then obviously offensive line for them as well. But Phil said, from what I understand, some bonuses go against the cap and some don't. Yeah, that's something that's weird. Like they can front load some caps, they can front load some bonuses. They can convert some salary into bonuses, and I get it. It's gymnastics, but like at the end of the day, that's kind of why I like baseball, to be quite honest. I get like baseball is different and baseball has no cap, but like when you sign a guy to a deal in baseball, that's his deal. And unless you bend this guy over backwards to restructure, that's what you're going to pay him, and more than likely you're going to have to pay him out if that doesn't happen. Phil also says Giants O-line will be fine, age much better when they fired that bum coach. Solder is back to, Nick Solder. So, and then, by the way, before we move on from football, just a couple more signings for people. Obviously, people know Mitch Trubisky signed to be the backup in Buffalo. Wish him the best of luck there. Will Fuller is with Miami now. I think that's a big pickup for Miami. They needed a game-breaking type of wide receiver to go along with Devontae Parker. So I think that was a big pickup for them. You saw, as far as when it comes to cornerbacks, there's a lot of movement. Like Patrick Peterson went to the Vikings. You have a William Jackson signed, I believe, it was a Shaquille Griffin who signed with the Jaguars. We mentioned Curtis Samuel signing with Washington. The 49ers signed Pro Bowl Alex Mack, as the Falcons seem to be in full tank mode. I believe they're probably going to be listening to offers for Julio, and I would imagine, I don't know about you, but I would imagine that they have the 4th pick. I think that's going to be a quarterback. I think it's going to be like a Trey Lance, or who, honestly, if what's his name drops, Fields drops, I think they're gonna have to jump on that.
Yeah, I'm with you, because I'm trying to figure out, like, how much longer are you just going to keep Matt Ryan around? And I know you mentioned earlier about it being a cap situation, but dude, it's like you've pretty much maxed out with Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
You had the 1 Super Bowl run. Obviously, you guys became the most historic meme in meme history with the 28-3, up 25, and you end up losing the Super Bowl. But the problem is that, right, where do you go from here? Like, how much longer are you going to go? You've been running the Julio Jones, some killer second wide receiver this year was Calvin Ridley, with Matt Ryan and some suitable running back. This year was supposed to be Todd Gurley, but his needs are just not the same.
Yeah.
You cut Devontae Freeman. So it's and now this year they're coming with a different offensive coordinator because Dirk Cutter retired from the NFL.
Yeah.
So I think at this point I'm with you. It has to be a quarterback. But then, what do you do with Matt Ryan? Like, what team out there could really go for a middle of the age? I hate to bring this up, but what about the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah.
Because it seems like every time a team, when it comes to talking about quarterbacks, their names keep coming up, like they're not sold on Jimmy G. I would have said, hey, what about the New England Patriots? But they re-upped with Cam Newton. I would have said, what about the Indianapolis Colts? But they went with Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
I could say
Vegas maybe, but Vegas seems pretty set with Derek Carr.
Pretty content on Derek Carr. There's so many names. So I just think with Atlanta, yeah, they're going to have to move on. But what's a suitable trade partner that you could find for Matt Ryan? Hell, dude, how about the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah. That's another situation where that Kirk Cousins deal is just ugly. They can't get out from under it.
Not even close. Not like you couldn't pay. Like you could give up like 8 first-round draft picks, and I bet your teams would be like, nah, man, we're good.
We're good on that. I'm not going to pay for it. Yeah, no. And I want to talk to you about New England because, seems like Bill came out of last season just pissed off and said, let's go get me another team here. So I thought the first one, which you and I had mentioned both of our teams should jump on, was the Trent Brown trade. Seemed like Vegas was just not, first of all, they were upset with some of the off-the-field stuff with Trent Brown. He wasn't, really showing the commitment that they like. John Gruden's that kind of old head type of dude. So they ended up trading him to the Patriots, and then the Patriots on the first day of free agency just go completely nuts. Jonnu Smith was one of the first ones. Then they signed Matt Judon, who's a really awesome pass rusher. Then Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, and then Hunter Henry. So they basically signed 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, a bookend tackle, and then on top of that got some defensive help and re-signed a couple guys. Kyle Van Noy, who got cut from the Dolphins because of a big cap figure. He comes back there, and they're making moves. Clearly, let's be honest about what happened last year with the Patriots. The Patriots, I think they gave Bill Belichick one year to do the whole Patriots way thing, prove that he can plug Cam in, and it wasn't all Tom. And you know what? We can see what we can do without Tom, and that just failed miserably because you saw that the first couple of weeks it wasn't too bad, right? It's like we talked about it in the first couple of weeks when, like, remember that week where they beat the Dolphins because Cam was just running all over the Dolphins in the opening week. Then the second week they had a good game against Seattle, but then they lose in the last second because of that fourth down stop in the red zone. And then but like after that you're like, wow, like the Patriots not bad. I mean, the thing is, how sustainable is this if Cam Newton's going to be your running back, right? And then you see it fall apart. Mostly it had a lot to do with the defense too, right? Because the defense just really couldn't make the type of stops. And also when the defense was making stops and getting turnovers, the offense wasn't able to convert that into 6 points. So the Patriots went all in here. And by the way, they still have a good amount of draft picks as well. So Bill is going to be trying to rebuild things in New England. And let's be honest about what helped with that. Not having Tom Brady's contract of 25, 30 plus million does wonders for you. And that's why, listen, another one of these big winners is the Cardinals, because they went out and got J.J. Watt, and then they signed A.J. Green. But the only way you can do that and have a guy like DeAndre Hopkins making that type of money is you draft a really good quarterback who the first 5 years of his deal is a rookie contract, and then you can go out and make crazy moves and then just basically plan yourself for when that rookie contract ends. Now we kind of start this new era, but that's another thing that I think the Bears missed out on, is that opportunity. Like, let's say, for example, the Bears did not go after Andy Dalton. You probably wouldn't. There's a lot of people who say, well, even if you didn't sign Dalton, you would still have to cut Kyle Fuller. I'm not sure about that, but fine, I'll give that to you. But let's say you don't sign Andy Dalton, and then next thing you know what? The only quarterback that falls to you is Mac Jones. Well, okay, Mac Jones now has a quarterback competition with Nick Foles. Let's say, for example, Nick Foles sucks, and then, after 6 games, he gets benched, and Mac Jones comes in, and next thing you know what? The Bears don't make the playoffs, but Mac Jones looks pretty damn good, and he might be the quarterback of the future for this team. Then next year, you don't have a giant, albatross contract for your quarterback. You can start to make some moves, get more weapons, more running backs, more offensive line help. But the problem is, and a lot of people are like, well, the Andy Dalton deal is only a 1-year deal, so what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is you just wasted $10 million for this year, because now you're already a team thinking, I don't know where the hell I'm at, and Nick Foles and Andy Dalton are basically gonna duke it out, and there's a lot of people saying that that Nick Foles won't be around, and we'll see. We'll see. I don't think the Bears are quote unquote done. I think they're going to keep going and try and, they need another offensive lineman. Definitely need another wide receiver. I don't know if you necessarily needed like a Kenny Galladay. That's the thing of that when the Bears were in the conversation for Kenny Galladay, I'm like, but why though? Like, I get it. You just need a really solid, like, Darnell Mooney's going to be a great player for you. Leave him as your number 3. Let's get a really solid number 2. I would have loved like a Corey Davis, even Kendrick Bourne. Like, Kendrick Bourne's very underrated because he's been with the 49ers for the last couple of years. But that's a great pickup for the Jets. For the I think it was the Patriots. Excuse me. And Corey Davis to the Jets. Like, that's the type of guy you needed. You didn't need a Kenny Galladay because you already have Allen Robinson. You just needed another solid number 2. You have Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham, even though Jimmy Graham's on the last, legs of his career. Then you just need one more offensive lineman, possibly 2 more offensive linemen, and then you fix the defense, and then you're back to thinking, okay, our window is cracked open, let's see how we do. But now the window is as shut as it's ever been in the last 5 years. You've wasted 3 years of Khalil Mack and his contract. You've wasted your Kyle Fuller being an all-pro cornerback, and now he's no longer with the team. And then on top of that, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace have no accountability because they're like, we're going all in. We're going to do what the hell we want because we're going to get fired after this year. So it's a real big mess right now. And I think the only thing that can really help solve this, especially for Bears fans, is getting rid of Nick Foles, drafting a quarterback, and finding a way to patch up some of these holes, because the defense is not going to be elite this year. It's going to be really hard for this defense to be elite like they were in the conversation of the last couple of years. With no Kyle Fuller, possibly like we saw what this defense looked like with no Akeem Hicks last year. it wasn't anything close to elite. So if you think that, you can plug in a few guys, like, they signed Angelo Blackson, they re-signed Mario Edwards, those guys aren't Akeem Hicks. Even two of those guys aren't Akeem Hicks. So, we're gonna see what life is like in the pits if you're the Bears. And honestly, at this point, I would rather be in the pits of it than where we are right now, which is like right in this purgatory range where no NFL team wants to be in this range where the Bears are at right now. And the only thing that can happen is a 10-12 win season, and that's not happening.
Yeah, and I'm so with you because you know there's certain teams where they know they're gonna suck.
Yeah,
like, they know they're gonna be bad. The Jets kind of knew they were gonna be bad this year. The Dolphins a couple years ago knew they were gonna be bad.
Jaguars this year, yeah.
The Jaguars knew they were going to be bad. So you kind of just prepare for it. But I think a lot of these, because think about it, Shaquille Griffin is a prime example of why Russell Wilson wants to leave flipping Seattle. Like, why would you give up on Shaquille Griffin for it, right? Because for a team that struggles so bad defensively, you let one of your better defensive players go.
Yeah.
To the Jacksonville Jaguars of all the 31 remaining teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
He goes to probably the worst team in Florida right now, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Shaquille Griffin was basically like, I'll leave this okay to decent situation in Seattle to go to this crap ass situation in Jacksonville and build it up. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, but the Bears are like, okay, whether if you read the Bible or not, but in the Bible it says that when it comes to believing in God, either you're all in or you're all out. He doesn't like you're lukewarm. That's where the Bears are right now.
Yeah.
Lukewarm as hell because they're afraid to suck and really have the fans mad at you. Because it's been a little while since the Bears have sucked. Okay, they've been in the lukewarm. Like they're not 3-13 bad.
Yeah,
but it kind of sucks. Like we mentioned earlier, to continue to be 6-10, 7-9, 8-8, 9-7, because Ryan Pace has proven that he's not necessarily great when it comes to evaluating talent with Matt Nagy, because they both have to make a decision on who's coming into play. You know what I'm saying? Matt Nagy has to have that decision in it. So when these two guys are sitting in the same room and discussing draft picks, when you're between 6-10 and 9-7, like the Atlanta Falcons have been, you're going to have that one miraculous season, and then you're going to go right back to mediocrity.
Yeah.
And that's what the Bears have been. So that's why I'm kind of with you because I was going to ask you this earlier. Let's say if Mac Jones is sitting there at 20, would you take him knowing that you had Foles and knowing that you have Andy Dalton? And you just answered it by saying, well, we can just get rid of Foles for, at this point, a bag of footballs because it doesn't help or hurt us if we let him go. And now you have Andy Dalton as your starter, and you have a guy who needs to sit on the bench for maybe a year and just learn some things and not get hurt. Because at the end of the day, too, though, you get into that slippery slope when it comes to that, because if Matt Jones, okay, so again, I gotta bring up Mahomes now for the 50th time.
Yeah.
But in Mahomes' case, the same guy that was going to run the offense when Mahomes was on the bench for a year, it's practically the same guy that's still running the offense 3 years into his starting career, right?
Yeah.
Where in Mac Jones, good goddamn well, unless the Bears go 16-0 and win the Super Bowl, there's no flipping way Matt Nagy's really coming back. Like the Bears would have to have this miraculous season, and Andy Dalton would have to have God touch him in the forehead, and nothing can go wrong for the Bears to have this miraculous season, right?
Yeah.
So if you draft Mac Jones, you're basically have to tell Mac Jones, forget everything you just learned, because you're not going to learn the next year.
No, yeah. Don't even listen to the QB meetings. Just check out, get on the iPhone.
Just work on your form. Let's see.
Stay healthy.
Stay healthy. Let's see. Maybe we can get a little chemistry, like if Cole Kmet and Allen Robinson and whoever else is going to play wide receiver. If you guys can just get on the same page, don't worry about the plays. I just want you to get a feel of how Mack throws the ball. And then once we bring in a more competent head coach and GM next year, then you can start learning so that, we can build some rapport.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the only bad situation you run into is that you're going to ask Mac Jones to learn Matt Nagy's system, knowing good goddamn well you're not going to keep him after next year. Yeah. And now you're going to have this man learn a whole new system, which, by the way, is what buried Jay Cutler in the worst way. Okay. Lawrence Holmes, I was watching this yesterday on Twitter, was completely going off on the score.
Yeah.
But could you imagine some of the I don't blame him. If I heard this correctly, the quarterbacks that have been under Ryan Pace while he has been GM has been Matt Glennon, Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, and there's somebody else.
They had like a Matt Barkley year. They had a year with like 2 backups, basically. Brian Hoyer was in there.
Bingo, all under Ryan Pace.
Yeah.
And now you see why Bears fans are upset. Like, dude, we've now endured almost 6-7 years since Jay Cutler's been gone with basically backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me
you wasted Jay Cutler too on top of that. Like
exactly.
You had Jay Cutler, who was not an elite quarterback, but he was like top 2 or 3 tiers when he was with the Bears, but the Bears could never protect him. The Bears could never find wide receivers that were going to be, game-breaking wide receivers for him. And really at the end of the day, the Bears are a poorly run organization. Let's just put it right out there. The Bears are a poorly run organization right now. Ryan Pace is just kind of it's a blind lead in the blind. And I think Ryan Pace, in my mind, really the only plus side that Ryan Pace has shown in his tenure is he knows how to draft like rounds 3 to 6 or 3 to 7. He knows how to draft pretty well, but even then, he has a couple real big strikeouts. Like for every Tariq Cohen, there's an Adam Shaheen. For every so like what are we really talking about here? Because to be quite honest, most coaches and most GMs can hit on a few first or late round picks like that. So and here's another, because I do want to we got a lot more to talk about, but another one of these big nightmares, Nick, is like we talked about all the quarterbacks that are going to go. Like, okay, Trevor Lawrence, you're not going to see this guy. He's going to be in a Jaguars uniform next year.
Right.
Justin Fields, say what you want about if the Jets take him, whoever takes him, somebody's going to take this guy in the top 5.
Yeah.
You have Trey Lance, you have Zach Wilson, you have Mac Jones. After that, though, there is a huge drop-off. I think there's like Kyle Trask, and there's a couple other guys that are in there. And my biggest nightmare is that the Bears are stuck at 20. All 5 of the guys that we just talked about are no longer available, and you now have pigeonholed yourself to say, I have to take a quarterback here. No team is gonna do you a favor and trade up to 20 for something unless somebody dramatically falls. And if somebody dramatically falls, the Bears have to take them, right? So like, and I'm talking about other positions, but the biggest nightmare for the Bears will be if all 5 of those guys aren't available and the Bears take a 2nd, 3rd, 4th round quarterback talent at number 20. That would be just, that's the icing on the cake, right? Like
I can see them reaching for Kyle Trask.
I can see that too. And you know what? I think Trask would probably be the example where a lot of people probably wouldn't be too mad, because a lot of people have him bordering between the late 1st round, 2nd round. Some people are saying that there's going to be teams that may be interested in trading up for him, a San Francisco type team that says, we don't want to take a quarterback too high, but we'll trade back in to the 1st round for somebody like that. It'd be interesting to see what exactly happens with the draft, and obviously we'll see that closer to draft date. And like you said, I know some pro days are happening, but we'll see exactly what that looks like. But it is a really big worry of mine right now that the Bears are going to go into next season with Andy Dalton and Nick Foles, and you're going to hear from training camp the competition for Bears quarterback between Andy Dalton and Nick Foles, and it's just going to be like 2 dudes with noodle arms, like at camp trying to throw to 3rd-rate receivers, and Allen Robinson is just going to look in the mirror and go, "What the hell am I doing with my life?" I really do legitimately feel bad for Allen Robinson. If you look at the numbers, Allen Robinson is a top 5 wide receiver in the league very easily, and a lot of people can make the case top 2 or 3. With some and this is with no quarterbacks throwing to him. I mean, if you look at the guys that have been throwing to him, it's been a joke. And also, it's funny to say this, but I saw this on Twitter, and I don't necessarily disagree. Andy Dalton might be the best quarterback that has ever thrown to Allen Robinson, right? So, and I don't necessarily agree because again, if you look at the numbers from 2016 to now, Mitchell Trubisky has eerily similar numbers to Andy Dalton, and at the very least, Mitchell brought you his legs. Andy does not bring you that. So if you don't have bookend tackles this year that are going to be able to protect the quarterback, with Charles Leno not exactly known for that. We don't even know who's playing right tackle as of right now. And by the way, the Bears have James Daniels, who's a really nice young offensive lineman, but he was hurt all year last year. And with offensive linemen, you don't know what that's going to look like. Cody Whitehair's a Pro Bowler, but he's a center. They might try and move him to right tackle. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Usually guards don't really transition well to tackle. They re-signed Jermaine Ifedi, who had a so-so year, probably be a guard. And then you have Charles Leno, who is extremely overpaid, not very great at the blindside tackle, and you really can't get out of that contract either. So the Bears are in a really tough position right now, man. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna save the depressive talk. Let's not talk about the Bears for at least another couple weeks. Okay, we'll talk about draft and we'll talk about whatever we can, but let's stay away from the Bears for a couple weeks so I can recover from this. But guys, appreciate. I know that was a lot of football talk, but we're going to talk to you a little bit more about some NBA stuff that's happening in the league. We'll talk about what's going on with the Bulls and the Knicks right now. Definitely want to talk to you about some NHL hockey as well, because we haven't talked hockey in a while, and the Blackhawks just seem to be kind of heading downwards after a really nice start to the season. Last 2 weeks have been not bueno. And
my bracket is on. You know what? It's not on life support.
Mine too.
It's on okay, we're going to keep you in the hospital for 2 weeks, and we're going to
we're going to monitor
run
you.
Some tests.
Yeah, we're going to monitor
punk
you.
Bitch ass Ohio punk ass state.
Yeah.
God, dude, I flipping hate college basketball with a passion, and yet every year I go head to head against Christian because all we do is talk smack. And when I saw Ohio State lose to Oral flipping Roberts, because let me make sure I got this straight, because I do. Today, and it's not just the NBA, it's basketball in general, right?
Yeah.
This whole step back 3 stuff pisses me off.
Yeah.
Why do you go further away from the hoop to take a low percentage shot?
Yeah.
Dude, I remember watching a game between Georgetown and I want to say it was St. John's, and someone from Georgetown took a step back 3, and they had that camera in Patrick Ewing's face. Oh, was he pissed? Yeah. He was like, where did you learn that shot? Did you learn that in practice? So do I need to start keeping an eye on you in practice? Because no, that's not what we practice.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him, dude. So when I'm watching, I forget what's this kid's name, Washington, whatever his name was, takes a step back jumper. You're the number 2 team in this region against a 15th seed team, and you're telling me you can't go to the hole?
And they were only down by 2, or were they down by 1 or 2? I thought they were only down by.
The game was tied. The game was tied when he went to take that step back
shot.
He went
to take it. Okay.
In regulation. And
that's right. And then overtime. Yeah.
It was short. If you would have not taken a step back, guess what? Them little 3 inches, it's in the flipping hoop.
Yeah. Or here's a crazy idea. How about you take the ball to the hole? Like, that's another thing that really bothers me.
It's Oral Roberts, bro.
Right,
okay?
Exactly, yeah.
It's not like we're sitting here talking about they were going against number 1 Michigan or number 1 Illinois or number 1 Baylor or, I don't know, like an athletic team like Florida State or something. It's Oral Roberts, bro.
Half of those guys aren't even on scholarship. They're just
And you just let some middle second-rate school drop 75 of your dumb asses and eliminate you from the tournament on national TV.
Yeah.
And like, and what really pisses me off is I hate when I have to go on and watch all these little stupid ass stats where, you know, of the 175 million people that did brackets, only 14%. Screw the 14% because Ohio State should have never lost to Oral Flippin' Roberts.
Yeah, that was
That's
pretty
a joke.
Yeah, that was pretty
utter
bad.
Flippin' joke. And it pisses me off because I had Purdue going pretty far. Yeah. Dude, I'm sitting here thinking for a guy that makes fun of the Big Ten, I was giving the Big Ten so much love this year because I have Michigan winning the whole thing, beating Illinois.
Yeah, and I got Illinois.
And I was very on the fence about that too because I'm scared with Illinois because I think their path to the Final Four is much harder than tough, the other three number ones.
That's true.
So I'm thinking to myself, okay, if they make it to the championship game again for the first time since they lost to North Carolina way back when, how tired are they going to be?
Yeah, that and like you said, the other brackets seem to have a lot nicer roads to that, which would mean probably more blowouts. I know the Illinois game was a blowout yesterday, and if you guys missed the action yesterday, as Nick talked about, number 15 Oral Roberts beat Ohio State. You also had Oregon State, the number 12 seed, beating.
I had that one.
Yeah, I actually had that one too. I was about to say that was the only one I picked. Liberty made it close with Oklahoma State, but Oklahoma State came out on top. For the first time in Roy Williams' coaching career, he's exited in the first round as North Carolina, who's had a bad season. Let's be honest. North Carolina's had a bad season. Duke and let's be honest. Duke and Kentucky didn't even make the tournament this year, which is crazy to even think about. And then late in the day yesterday, as Nick said, North Texas beat Purdue, which North Texas, man, that was they had some guys where you're like, wow, pretty good baller, but they also had like the guy who's just shooting floaters. I'm like, that's just bad defense. Like if the guy makes 4 floaters on you and then you're letting him take 4 more, that's bad defense. I don't care how good the shot is, that's bad defense, right?
Dude, it's unreal, bro. It's unreal. I still can't believe you lost to Oral Roberts. That is what really pissed me off.
Yeah.
You lost to Oral freaking Roberts, dude.
Yeah, and that's gonna be a scar.
And then earlier today, before we came on the show, Kansas had to go on like this miraculous run at the end to separate themselves from what was it?
Eastern Washington,
Washington or whatever it was. Yeah, exactly.
And that Florida State game was awfully close too. It was I think UNC Greensboro. They had to make a late run as well. And then late yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw the Rutgers over Clemson. That was another one that another
one I lost.
Yeah, I that was tough. The one that I did also, another one that I did have was Syracuse over San Diego State. I know Syracuse had another tough year, but that was I think having them as an 11 seed was a little bit low, I thought. But either way, they beat up on San Diego State, and then pretty much all the other favorites made it yesterday. And then earlier today, Creighton barely gets by UCSB. Michigan dominated Texas Southern. LSU dominated St. Bonaventure. We talked about Kansas and Florida State making late runs to win those games. And then Colorado beat up on Georgetown, who just, Yeah, that one is tough, man.
God, dude, I hate college basketball with a passion. Dude, these brackets piss me off.
Yeah, and I don't care, honestly, Nick. I have a lot of people who are like, dude, I watch every college basketball game this season. I was staying up late watching the Pac-12. Da-da-da. Good for you.
I call bullshit. Bullshit.
And also good for you because that didn't do shit for you in this bracket. I'm telling you, like that's the crazy thing about March Madness is like maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago you could go, man, these teams are really top heavy. They have NBA talent. Like these are the best. But now you look at the field and you go, it's wide. I mean, I'm sorry. Like even Illinois. I know Illinois is really good, but they're not unbeatable. Even like a Gonzaga or a Baylor. I know, Baylor has had some really nice runs this year, but they're not unbeatable either. So, Yeah, and then we have Drake and USC, which is a close game right now. They're at half. It's 40 to 37. USC's leading Drake by 3. And then the only other game going on right now, Alabama's beating Iona. Later on, you'll have Iowa playing. I think Iowa's another one I have going deep. Maryland and UConn. Maryland the 10 seed, 7. UConn is a 7 seed. UConn, yeah. So that's, and then UConn's another kind of a dark horse team because 7 is pretty for what they did this season and the competition that I mean, the Big East is a killer when it comes to college basketball. So.
Thanks.
So when you look at that, they look a little underrated. Virginia, always a perennial team. They're facing Ohio as a number 4 seed. You have an 8-9 matchup with Oklahoma and Missouri, and then you got Gonzaga, who a lot of people feel is a favorite this year against 16 seed Norfolk State. You'll have UCLA, who won the play-in game yesterday, or I'm sorry, a few days ago now, facing BYU later, and then Texas and Abilene Christian, and then to round out the night, it will be Oregon versus VCU, and then tomorrow we'll get into the round of 32.
I wanted to make a mention of a couple of those teams. First off, with UConn, dude. UConn was playing so good until James Bouknight got hurt, and then they kind of didn't let the ship sink while he was out with the elbow injury. But then when he came back, UConn came back to kind of really be a good team, and the only team they really struggled against was Creighton. Yeah. So I think with UConn, I of course I'm a diehard UConn fan. Do I think they're going to go deep, like super deep, like Final Four, Kemba Walker deep?
Right.
Probably not, but I think they're going to turn some heads. I think Dan Hurley's done a very good job in UConn. That's why they gave him the extension. There was another game that you brought up that I wanted to talk about.
I think you gave me a look when I said Iowa, Virginia, Ohio, Oklahoma.
Virginia. That's the game I want to talk about. Virginia. Yeah. Because Virginia is kind of they're a scary team, and I mean scary bad. Remember, they're just now getting to Indianapolis. True. Because they were in the COVID protocol. Yeah. So they weren't able to get to Indianapolis until I think last night. Yeah. So I'm anxious to see how that's going to turn out for them, because the year that I picked Virginia to win the national championship, they lost to a 16 team.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the year I didn't pick Virginia win the championship, they won the whole goddamn thing.
Yeah. That's why it's like, what? I don't care how skilled you are, how knowledgeable you are about college basketball. There's nothing you can do about March Madness. I'm sorry. No. By the way, while we were talking, we mentioned it earlier. Kyle Fuller made it official. He's going to the Broncos. All right. Nice. If you guys needed anything else to be depressed about, if you're a Bears fan, we'll just give you more reasons. All right, guys, have fun. A couple really interesting.
That team is maybe one quarterback. Let's see how Drew Lock does, because a lot of people were comparing Drew Lock's rookie numbers to Josh Allen's. Rookie year numbers, and they're eerily similar. I think Drew Lock threw for a few more yards and a couple more touchdowns. Let's see how he does this year, because I know Philip Lindsay is a free agent right now.
Yeah, he signed with the Texans.
Did he already sign?
He signed with the Texans.
Okay, so I want to see what Denver does offensively, but I think defensively, that's a really good move right there to bring in with Bradley Chubb.
Kept Von Miller.
Von Miller coming back.
Yeah.
And so
Justin Simmons, all-pro free safety. You have a really nice defensive line. Yeah, dude, that's a really nice pickup for them.
Well, defensively, Vic Fangio set. So now hopefully they can find something to do offensively, because it's going to be tough, keeping up with Mahomes and keeping up with Herbert. And I don't know, dude, I'm still on the fence about Las Vegas, because with the Raiders, dude, everyone keeps asking how long the leash is for John Gruden in Las Vegas. And at the end of the day, it's long, dude. What's his name?
He signed a 10-year deal, didn't he?
Yeah, he signed a 10-year deal. And Mark Davis is not letting John Gruden go.
No.
They would have to literally go 1-15 for them to fire.
And even then, you've already put all your eggs in his basket. What good does it do you to say, let's cut him loose now?
Right, exactly. So So I'm still on the fence with Vegas, but I'm anxious to see what Denver does, because I still think that their low key could be still in the move for Watson if he's still available.
Or don't put it past them to be in the, like you talked about the Jets not taking Fields and maybe shopping the second pick. Don't put that past them either, because if they say, you know what, nobody else wants to step up, here's a player and 2 draft picks, and I think Broncos select in, I think, the top 10 anyways. So you just trade up a little bit, get yourself a couple extra assets thrown in there, and you could have what people argue is the number 2 quarterback in the class. So yeah, I agree. I think, and another one that's really interesting is like, the Jimmy Garoppolo conversation still hasn't really materialized. We don't know what's going to happen there. They may, decide to move forward with that. But then also, when you look at it, there's still at least a little bit of a chance that they have a Deshaun Watson or a Russell Wilson. I know Russell didn't have them on their list, but like if they come calling with these crazy assets and throwing Von Miller and stuff like that, that's possible. So, but again, do you put your trust? And I know he's no longer running the show anymore, but the whole Elway thing about his evaluation of quarterbacks and what he hasn't been able to do and has tried to do, I think Justin Fields would be a home run for them, though. I think like you bring him in, he's got a little bit of a feel of like a Kyler Murray, of a guy who could just like start from day one, has some pretty nice reps in college, can at the very least be a competent quarterback for you year one, and come out and take a giant step in year 2. Very mobile, really nice arm, probably even a better arm than Kyler does. So yeah, I think Denver's another dark horse for sure, especially that like now you can start to talk about that defense in elite territory too, if they can figure out their run defense, because that's going to be a tough pass rush. You got all pros in the secondary now. There's no joking around when it comes to that.
Oh, and by the way, not to add on to your depressing news, but remember the Bears gave Akeem Hicks permission
to trade.
Trade.
And by the way, there's no guarantee that happens. They could just cut him. That if they need to, they could just cut him.
And I would not be surprised if Vic Fangio is just sitting there looking at the chops like, hey, just super monitor this one.
Dude, Akeem Hicks next to Von Miller and Bradley Chubb on the other side, and you got Kyle Fuller as your number 1. I think they signed another cornerback too that's escaping me, but yeah, dude, that is a really dangerous. And by the way, you're gonna need that against teams like Kansas City, and the Chargers over the next couple of years. So, hey man, yeah, shout out to Denver. That's what happens when you're not stuck in purgatory. You can go ahead and be bad. You have a top 10 pick. You have cap space. You're not worried. Like, even the whole Von Miller thing, I thought it was kind of silly. They were talking about, letting go of Von Miller to save $18 million, and there was something like $40 million in cap space. It's like, what, you need $58 million and not $40 million to do what you're talking about? Like, just bring back this all-pro guy for $18 million. It's a 1-year deal, essentially. If he doesn't work out, you save $18 million next year. I think they did the right thing with the Kyle Fuller. They had to be aggressive, and I think Kyle is a perfect guy for a physical defense because he's a tackler. He's a dude who can put a lick on running backs and wide receivers alike, create turnovers, and again, another guy that's like a locker room guy. He's going to watch a lot of tape. He's going to make a lot of younger cornerbacks better. Wish him the best of luck over there, but it's going to be really tough to see him in blue and orange and not our blue and orange, I guess.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and I just
you guys are like more blue and orange, and they're more like orange and blue.
Blue, that's true, right? Or we're like navy and orange, I guess you could say, if you want to split hairs. And I just want to go through the round of 32 tomorrow. That's tomorrow. So we've got Loyola and Illinois. That's gonna be a really interesting one because Loyola has been sort of like Cinderella's and both Illinois teams. So that's gonna be really interesting. Wisconsin Baylor's another really interesting matchup. With Baylor being the 1 seed, West Virginia with oh my God, his name's escaping me. He just got
Bob Huggins.
Bob Huggins, yeah. And Syracuse, so Boeheim versus Bob Huggins, and then you've got.
Oh, hey, speaking of which, dude, when do we start putting Jim Boeheim in that Tom Izzo category?
Right, of like, what do you do for me lately?
Remember how like no. Like remember when it was like, never, like, no matter how low Michigan State was, it was always never bet against Tom
Izzo, right? True. That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Look at Jim Boeheim. Like, the reason why I picked San Diego State was because I didn't think Syracuse belonged there, let alone being an 11 seed. And then here comes Jim Boeheim with a Syracuse team where, you know, they're okay, they're not great, and they come out just flipping smash San Diego State out of the water.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, when you have a veteran coach like Jim Boeheim, who's won national championships and has been down this road before, he's got his teams ready. So I think it's time we start putting Jim Boeheim in that same category as Tom Izzo.
And I think I read something that said that Syracuse hasn't had like a 5-star prospect come to their school in the last 4 years or something like that.
I believe that.
Which like that's another huge thing. Is like he used to be able to, you know, recruit the Carmelos of the world, and now it's like things have changed.
Carmelos, Joey McNamara,
yeah.
Johnny Flynn.
Yeah. And remember that whole Johnny Flynn thing got him drafted in I think it was a top 3 to the Timberwolves that year. They selected him and Ricky Rubio like 3 and 5 or something. Yeah.
I think it was 3 or 5
4 and 5 or 3. Yeah, something like that. So and then
that reason right there is the reason why the Knicks didn't get Stephen Curry. Because flipping dumbass Minnesota
drafted 2 point guards
and 2 point guards back to flip it back. And then a team that needed a point guard in Golden State was like, well, I guess Steph Curry is the best guy available. And it stopped the Knicks from doing it. Because then when that went bad, then the Knicks drafted Jordan Hill, booed the piss out of Jordan Hill, and then traded Jordan Hill to the Houston Rockets for an old and expiring Tracy McGrady.
That's right.
I am so glad the Knicks are not doing that shit anymore.
Yeah.
Thank God, dude.
Leon Rose is really, and I want to talk to you about that in a little bit. Or actually, we could talk about it right now. But I just want to round out the games tomorrow. Texas Tech.
Sure.
Texas Tech and Arkansas. Houston and Rutgers tomorrow. And you got the aforementioned Oral Roberts versus Florida.
Oral Roberts, bro. Ohio State lost to Oral flipping Roberts, bro.
I'm not even gonna lie. I don't even know what state Oral Roberts is in.
That's exactly my point. Like, unless you're like some geography major or you really went to Oral Roberts, you don't know where it's at. And a team that was supposed to be like the 3rd best team in the Big Ten, who finished 2nd in the Big Ten title game, just lost to Oral freaking Roberts, bro.
Yeah. If they do this against Florida tomorrow, man. Yeah, if they do this against Florida tomorrow, that would be a talk of the century of 15 seed.
Because these idiots want to take step back jump shot 3. They don't work. Go to the goddamn hoop. That's why there's a lane there, dude.
Right.
You're going to tell me these Oral Robert guys are like defensive Tom Thibodeau geniuses? They were locking you down from getting to the goddamn hole?
Yeah.
No, you knew you were taking a step back jumper. That's why it took you so long, idiot. You wasted 15 seconds for that shot. Like, dude, I don't think it's Tad Mott. I forget who's coaching Ohio State. Dude, I would still be yelling at him.
Yeah, for sure. They would still be running suicides.
Yeah, I swear to God, dude. I'd be like, oh, you think the season's over with? No, the NCAA tournament might be over with. You're running sprints.
Yeah, all week
just
long.
Lost to Oral Roberts because you wanted to take a step back impossible jumper that ended up short. Idiot.
And something tells me Florida's just gonna beat the brakes off of them tomorrow to really add insult to injury to Ohio State. It's
if they do, I'd make them run more sprints.
Yeah, for sure, just for that.
I'm like, hey, Florida took care of business. How come you couldn't? More sprints, gentlemen.
That's it, yeah.
You will run till you throw up.
Suicides all day, yeah. Villanova, North Texas, and then Oregon State and Oklahoma State tomorrow to wrap that day up. And then again, we'll, as the day materializes, we'll find out what happens on Monday. But yeah, very fun, but obviously not the overall best first I guess you could say first day of the NCAA tournament for a lot of people, as a lot of brackets have been busted. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about some pro basketball, because I want to talk about pro basketball with you, because your Knickerbockers.
I can't get mad at the Knicks losing to Oral Roberts.
Yeah, exactly right. That'll never happen, thankfully for you. But man, the East has really materialized a little bit more than when we last spoke, because I think when we last spoke there was a little bit of a glut in the men. There still is a glut. I mean, let's be honest, between the 4 seed Miami, who by the way just came out of nowhere, started playing better defense, got Jimmy Butler back, and they're back in the picture. Atlanta just beat the Lakers.
Acquired Trevor
Ariza too, yeah, and gave up Myers Leonard to Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City is going to cut Myers Leonard. They just did that for the second round pick again. Like, I guess having 35 picks in the next couple of years is what OKC wants. So good for them. Miami, Atlanta, New York, Charlotte, and Boston round out the 4 through 8. And let's remember, guys, because I don't think we mentioned it very much on earlier podcasts, but 8 through 10 this year. Or I'm sorry, 7 through 10. 7 through 10 go through a play-in almost for the last 2 spots. So really, like, what you're looking at is here, Miami at the 4, Atlanta at the 5, the Knicks close 6, and then Charlotte, Boston, Indiana, and Chicago, believe it or not, after the way they've played the last few games, all round out the top 10. Toronto's on the outside looking in right now. They've had a really rough last couple of games. I think they've lost 7 in a row, if I'm not mistaken now. Washington, just sometimes Washington looks like they're world beaters, like with Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, and sometimes you're like, is this even an NBA team?
Right.
And then, Cleveland, Orlando, Detroit probably won't ever be in the conversation. But, man, first of all, let's talk about – I want to talk about the Bulls, but let's talk about the Knicks, because the Knicks have, slowly but surely earned the respect of the league, first of all. Let's talk about that first. Like, let's talk about the fact that the Knicks were, for the vast majority of the last 5 years, the poking fun – they were They were the laughing stock of the league. Ha ha ha. KD came out and said nobody wants to play for the Knicks, and it's no longer sexy to play at the Garden. Nobody cares about playing at the Garden anymore. Dolan completely ruined the franchise. And really what we saw was it was a head coaching thing for the most part, because I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this team isn't, like, as far as who's on the court, not that much different than who was on the court last year, right? So when you bring in a guy like Tom Thibodeau, he establishes the culture that the same thing he did when he was an assistant in Boston and he got hired on to the Bulls. The first thing that we were told as Bulls fans is this guy's going to build a culture that's going to make players understand what's expected of them every single day, not only in the games but outside of games, in practice, outside when they're handling themselves, in working out. And it's paid dividends for the Knicks, who they've been on and off the last 10 games, but again, find themselves at 500 now. And I don't want to jinx you guys, but it's hard to imagine a scenario where the Knicks aren't in the playoff picture when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and let me say this too, because they lost to both Brooklyn and the 76ers, who are respectively
top teams,
the 2 top teams in the East.
Yeah.
And the Knicks, I know, granted, now KD didn't play, but the Knicks were still in that game.
Yeah.
And granted that Joel Embiid didn't play in the game against the Sixers, but the Knicks were actually winning that game in exactly what they have a bad habit of doing, which is going broke at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm still saying that if the Knicks were to – and here's the thing. When we were on the show a couple weeks ago, our buddy Will that came onto the show was talking about that there was a deal about us trading – Frank Ntilikina, Kevin Knox, and a second-round draft pick for Victor Oladipo. And I didn't get a chance to say it, but that's way too much. That's way too much for a guy who may not even re-sign with the Knicks next year. The Knicks do need to get a shooter, and I'm okay with getting Victor Oladipo. But if you take Frank out of that deal, believe it or not, I'm actually defending Frank Ntilikina, because I think Frank Ntilikina finally has a coach that's going to accept his skill set, which is – defense first, and then the offense will come later. Now, in Frank's case, he's going to need to score, because the Knicks, the Knicks aren't necessarily right now blessed with Phoenix-like talent. And what I mean by Phoenix-like talent is the days of Nash and Stoudemire and Sean Marion and those shooters that they had, because Steve Nash didn't have to necessarily put up 20 points a game. The same thing with Jason Kidd in those heydays with the Nets when it was him, RJ, and Vince Carter. The reason why Jason Kidd was so amazing passing the ball, because Vince Carter made shots, because Richard Jefferson made shots. In the Knicks case, we don't really have that shooter per se. Like Julius Randle's game isn't a guy who's just going to sit on the outside and look for the shot. You know what I'm saying? And Alec Burks right now is a guy who's kind of probably taking on a bigger role than I think he thought he was going to. And Reggie Bullock is pretty much what he is, which is a legit 3-and-D guy. He'll play defense. And we saw how they won the game against Orlando the other night. And,
he had a turnover late in the game, and then the next possession gets the game-winning steal.
Another one that ultimately sealed it. So I think the Knicks need another shooter. And we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, like a Buddy Hield, something cheap. Because at this point, I don't believe – clearly the Bulls aren't going to trade Zach LaVine, so we can throw that clean out of the window.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't feel like the Washington Wizards are going to trade Bradley Beal.
No.
You know, again, because remember when you weren't here a few weeks ago, I looked at some of the bottom teams.
Yeah.
You know, Toronto isn't going to trade a lot of people.
No.
I don't think Washington's going to trade a lot of people. You know, I forget who else was on the bottom of the East, but
Detroit.
Detroit has
they don't have anything to trade you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you look at some of the bottom teams in the West, it's the same thing. Like Sacramento might trade Buddy Hield, but what's the asking price on that? You're not going to get De'Aaron Fox because him and Tyler Halliburton are really playing well together. They're starting to mesh. So my thing is with the Knicks, I feel like they need a shooter. But here's the crazy thing about it. You know, a lot of people want to hate on RJ Barrett because what was a lot of the talk? A lot of the talk was once Zion went off the board at 1 and once Ja Morant went off the board at 2, the drop off from talent from there really dipped.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, now a lot of people are saying there was like 3 executives that honestly think that RJ Barrett could be a better player than Zion Williamson. Here's a news flash for everybody. RJ Barrett technically was a higher rated player in Duke than Zion Williamson was. A lot of people forget that. A lot of people forget the huge hype train that was on RJ Barrett even when Zion Williamson came in, because a lot of people said that Zion Williamson, remember that Duke team? That Duke team had Zion, RJ, and Cam Reddish.
Mm-hmm.
And the three praises on all 3 of them was that Cam Reddish had the higher ceiling.
Right.
Zion Williamson had the better hype, but RJ Barrett could end up being the best out of the 3. You know what I'm saying? And the thing that I like what RJ Barrett is doing better this year that he struggled mightily with last year is RJ is hitting more open shots this year than he did last year.
Right.
You're seeing him doing the same thing that I just complained about Ohio State doing. Take the ball to the hole.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these guys that can't even guard you. And RJ's doing a better job being aggressive to the hole, doing a better job shooting. And you're seeing his confidence grow time and time again. He's getting the minutes. He's getting better. And I'm not saying that I think he's better than what Cam Reddish is now. And the jury's still out on Zion Williamson. But here's where I think, and I'm speaking way too far ahead, but this is where the New Orleans Pelicans find themselves in trouble, because speaking of the trade deadline,
Lonzo.
What's his name? Lonzo Ball's name keeps popping up out of anywhere. And right now the Clippers seem to be super hot on him, but there's actually talks to where Lonzo Ball might actually be interested in coming to New York next year. Mm-hmm. And what was the one thing that I've been saying for the longest time? When you win games, you get more respect. And the Knicks right now, even in the games that they lost, if you look, we're 1-2 in our last 3 games. But if you look in those last 3 games, you played tough against Brooklyn, you played tough against or against the 76ers. And even though you were up big against Orlando and they came back, you had enough grit and will to come back and win that game. And that's why I think thank you to Kevin Durant for not coming here per se. Thank you for Kyrie Irving talking shit, because I think somewhere Dolan was like, you're right. Let me hire Leon Rose. Leon Rose, here's the keys to the Knicks. I just write the checks. Leon Rose went out and hired Tom Thibodeau. He got rid of Scott Perry, but no, wait a minute. He got rid of Steve Mills, but he kept Scott Perry as general manager. And look what they did. They signed a bunch of one-year contracts, but these guys are out here playing hard. And the Knicks are actually playing well without Mitchell Robinson, who should be coming back soon when he broke his hand about a few weeks ago. And Mitchell Robinson should be coming back soon. So my thing is when we lost Mitchell Robinson and a couple of these other guys, you would have thought the Knicks were going to fold, but Nerlens Noel is playing great. Derrick Rose hasn't played in a while with the safety protocols and his issues. IQ didn't play in the last game, but Frank Nitti stepped up for the Knicks. And again, I think that us trading Frank Ntilikina might be a borderline mistake, because here's a guy that loves to play defense with a guy who loves to preach defense.
Yeah.
So
especially for a rental though, like, okay, like, here's my thing. If that, what was the trade package you talked about? It was Nitti, Kevin Knox,
and the second round pick to the Rockets for Victor Oladipo.
So let me give you play devil's advocate, because I don't know if this works out salary cap wise, but like that for Buddy Hield and 3 years locked up Buddy Hield. I would
probably do it.
I would have to do that, because he is such a jump, shoot you out of the gym type of guy, and at least you have him locked up for 3 years. But obviously, I don't know if that works out cap wise, so we'll have to look at that. But yeah, I just I think the one thing about the Knicks, and I feel similarly about the Bulls, not as optimistically about the Bulls, but it's just nice to be in the thick of things again, right? Like it's nice to be in the conversation. It's nice not to have to like look at the schedule and go, oh my God, we're playing Brooklyn today, we're gonna get demolished. Oh my God. Like, the Bulls have played Denver yesterday, 3 3/4 quarters, beat the living hell out of Denver, and then completely collapse at the end of the game, lose the game. And by the way, the Bulls haven't won in Denver in 16 years. Can you believe that? They have not won in Denver. I know they only play once a year, but still, 16 years since the Bulls last won in Denver. And then it happened again the game before that against San Antonio. We're up big against San Antonio in the halftime, had a pretty decent third quarter, completely collapsed in the fourth quarter. But again, like this is actually, I might be in the minority of people. This is, I think, going to be good for the Bulls. And here's one reason why it's going to be good for the Bulls. First of all, I think right now Bulls fans have a little bit higher expectations about the Bulls than they should. I think the way that the Bulls have played, I think people are like, wow, we might be in the thick of things for the playoffs and da-da-da. And that's, in turn, really hurt us in the trade market. I think Thaddeus Young should have already been traded. I think like Garrett Temple, Denzel Valentine, some of these guys that like aren't going to be in the future for the Bulls. It'd be really nice to get some trade assets for them right now and play some younger guys, because I think that would help. So I think losing a couple games here and there before the deadline is going to help with that. But also, this team has to learn how to win. Like that's another huge thing that I think the Knicks are going to go through too. It's like, after being bad for so long, you have to learn. It's not about like learning how to win means winning games. No, learning how to win means going through the ebbs and flows of the daily NBA game, being up, being down, being able to come back, being able to hold leads, being like, I've talked about this before. The Bulls cannot guard elite 4s and 5s. They just can't. Like, Jokic just completely picked them apart yesterday. We don't have a true center on the team. You have Thaddeus Young playing as a 5. And with Billy Donovan, he recently made a couple of changes. He benched Kobe White. He benched Wendell Carter. Now you have Patrick Williams playing a little bit more in the first team. So, yeah, I'm not too discouraged about the Bulls. I know they've had a tougher run. And listen, am I obsessed with them being in the playoffs this year? Probably not, because it's like, if you don't make the playoffs, what's the worst that could happen? Well, you get a better draft pick, and on top of that, next thing you know, even if we're in the 8 seed, do the Bulls have a chance against Brooklyn? Do the Bulls have a chance against Philly? I just mentioned Elite 5s, like Embiid completely destroys back. That's going to be tough. So, yeah, I think the Bulls are in a position right now where they, at the very least, have to start to listen to some trade offers. Not for Zach LaVine. I think he's going to stay put, and I think you'll see him sign an extension after this year because he only has 1 year left after this. But Denzel Valentine, Thaddeus Young. Listen, Lauri Markkanen, how about this, Nick? How about the Bulls give you guys Lauri Markkanen, a nice little shooter? I'm going to be the Bulls GM for a second here. I'm going to talk to you like you're Leon Rose. Nick, I got this kid out of Arizona. I don't know if you heard of him, Lauri Markkanen. He was supposed to be the next coming of Dirk Nowitzki. It's been a little bit tough. He's young. He's a little bit lanky. Maybe can't put the ball on the floor as much as you'd like. But man, oh man, this guy knows how to shoot the three. How about you give me one of those Dallas first round picks? Dallas is going to be fine. Dallas is going to make the playoffs. That pick's not going to be good. You don't want that pick. How about you give me that pick for Lauri Markkanen?
So you want me to give up Dallas's first round draft pick for Lauri Markkanen?
And by the way, it's only a 1 year of Lauri Markkanen because he's a restricted free agent after this year. So, like, if somebody else signs him to an offer sheet, you have to either match or let him go for nothing. So,
I don't know if I want to do that.
Oh my God, it's gonna
now. Hold on.
Okay, let's talk.
About Zach LaVine for Dallas?
Oh no. Zach LaVine. It's gonna have to cost you Mitchell Robinson. It's gonna cost you one of your first round picks down the line, and you know what? Even like a Kevin Knox, yeah, it's gonna cost you, dude. Because here's another thing about Zach LaVine. His defense hasn't gotten much better. Okay, he's more willing to play defense, but he hasn't gotten better defensively. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. He's an elite scorer now. Like, it's pretty crazy to see the progression that you've seen from this guy, from being just a dunker who can maybe drive the lane and shoot a three every now and then, to now creating his own shots, being a spot-up shooter, catch-and-shoot guy. He's a guy who can get in the mid-range and shoot difficult shots. He's like easy 30 points a game against non-elite defenders. So the problem with that now is the value is so high that if you're the Bulls, listen, I'm not going to be super devastated if they trade Zach LaVine. I'm going to be really more infatuated on what they can get back, and if they can get back what they think that they can get back. Because remember, this isn't Garpax anymore. That's another thing. It's like people just are so used to the Garpax Bulls that they're like, how about we trade you peanuts and an old Blockbuster video for Zach LaVine? And they're like, done. Send the peanuts and you're on your way. But now, that was under Garpax. Now with Karnisovas, this is going to be a tough sell.
Or they're like, hello, Washington. This is Garpax. So I was thinking, I don't think we're going to get LeBron James, but we would like to take that Otto Porter Jr. off your hands, even though you gave him a max contract. So what's the asking price? And the Washington Wizards like, hey, hold on a second. Hey, can you believe this guy? Someone really wants to take Otto Porter Jr. off their hands. Hold on a second. How about maybe just a second round draft pick, and I don't know, we'll take maybe your
Bobby Portis,
11th best guys. Yeah, Bobby Portis. So we'll take Bobby Portis,
Jabari Parker.
I
think that was it. That was literally it.
Yeah.
That was literally it. And they were both. You want to take the biggest contract?
He's all yours. Hey, this idiot really just took Next thing you know, breaking news from the NBA: the Chicago Bulls have acquired Otto Porter Jr. and every Bulls fan is like.
And at the time, though, Nick, at the time, you're thinking, as a Bulls fan, you're thinking, well, we're not going to be able to be free agent guys, so nobody's going to sign here. Bobby Portis is going to walk after this year. Jabari Parker is going to walk after this year. So you know what? At least you lock up a very efficient player. Yeah, he's going to make $27 million over the next 3 years, but at least you lock up a really nice, efficient player. And man, oh man, first of all, Otto hasn't stayed on the court to even deserve that. But really, the only positive thing about Otto Porter is that he's a free agent after this year, and you get to get out of $27 million. You'll have that to spend next year. So, and that goes back to what you were talking about, Nick. The one big positive out of this season for the Bulls is if you start to win a little bit, you're going to start to convince some of these people who are maybe on the fence about coming over to come over. And and one of those could be, the piece that is what you're a piece away. I'm not saying the Bulls are a piece away. I'm not even saying the Knicks are a piece away. But I'm saying that when you bring yourself to the table with a little bit more of a winning attitude and a winning streak, like look at Charlotte, dude. Like the way that Charlotte is playing right now is almost fascinating to see. Because by the way, they play 4 point guards. They play very truly positionless basketball. And also, I mean, I'm sorry to say it, I like Anthony Edwards. He's putting up some Showtime performances. I also think James Wiseman is going to be a hell of a player. But the fact that anybody looked at Lonzo Ball and passed on him is fascinating to me now. If you look at his
LaMelo Ball,
LaMelo, I'm sorry, I said Lonzo. The fact that anybody looked at LaMelo Ball as a prospect and went, I'll take James Wiseman or I'll take Anthony Edwards over him, it's a little bit crazy to me because the guy's court vision, and he's a kid, by the way. He's not even 21, so I don't even know why. His court vision, his passing ability, his pace, his shooting is better. Remember, the whole big thing about him is, well, we don't know if he's a consistent enough shooter. He's not a willing defender. I mean, listen, dude, let's be honest about what happened with LaMelo. People looked at what happened with Lonzo, and people looked at what happened with his dad and went, we don't want the headache. It wasn't about his skills. It wasn't about, is this kid good enough? It was about...
And then it came to LiAngelo, when LiAngelo tried to, put himself out there for the NBA. And then Lonzo. This the same... Hey, look, I love LeVar Ball. I could care less what anyone says about him. I flipping love him.
I do too.
When he went on the Undisputed one day, and Skip Bayless asked him, okay, so who do you think could be the best scorer, the top scorer of the league? He said Jello. Come on, man. You gave me another black father, I will put his son on like that, knowing damn well that ain't the truth.
Yeah.
Come on, man. And it drives
with a straight face.
Right, with a straight face. He said Jello. He didn't even miss a beat. He believed that his son could one day be the best scorer in the NBA. Now it's still up in the air,
not gonna
but
happen.
You never know. But at the same time, dude, you're absolutely right. Because what's the same BS they said about Steph Curry? We don't know what position he could be.
He's too small.
He's too small to be a point. He didn't have the handles to be a point guard, but he was too small to be a shooting guard, and blah blah blah. And
now he has one of the best handles in the league. Now he's like got one of the best. Like it's crazy you mentioned that. Now that you mentioned that, remember like the whole Davidson thing in the NCAA tournament. He took them there, and like when he came to the draft, the whole thing about him was, well, he's never going to be big enough to be a truly effective point guard or a combo guard. He doesn't have the handles. Now you look at him, he's dribbling circles around some of the top defenders in the league, and without skipping a beat. Yeah, I think one day we'll look back at this draft, and I'm not saying Anthony Edwards is going to be a bad player. I think he's going to be a really good player because he really just started coming out of his shell the last couple of weeks, and Wiseman's been hurt, so we haven't seen him. But again, looking at LaMelo and the game changing. I mean, let's be honest about where Charlotte's. I mean, Charlotte is what, 7 seed now? 7 seed, right behind New York and Atlanta. And I would say a lot of that has to do with the fact that LaMelo has been such a playmaker for them. And he gets others involved. And again, it's not like they have like a tremendous roster. Terry Rozier is not like an elite guy. Devontae Graham, not elite. Even Gordon Hayward, a lot of people clown them for that deal, including I did, about that deal that they signed, $29 million for Gordon Hayward. You look back at that and you go, man, that wasn't too bad because the way that he plays for them, it's working out pretty well. And they don't, and I think they also could be another team that like another piece for them, maybe another big man. They could be, and PJ Washington looks really good. Like some of these other guys look really good. So yeah, I think that was one thing I wanted to mention was Anthony Edwards. Do I ever think Anthony Edwards will be a number one in this league? Probably not. I'm just not sure he has that type of ability or the shooting ability, but like athleticism, he could jump out the gym. We know that. Wiseman is another guy. Like, can you imagine James Wiseman as being the best player on his team? I'm not sure about that. But LaMelo, at this point, I think he's already the best player on his team. And then like when you look at the potential, because again, his shooting is just sort of in the elementary stages. And by the way, remember when he came out of the draft and he said, oh, his shot is so ugly and he's going to have to change his shot just like Lonzo did. And remember Lonzo, by the way, Lonzo went through with that. He didn't have to. He did change his shooting game. And, his shooting's a little bit better. But LaMelo said, nope, I'm not going to change my shot. This is how I shoot. And it's working out pretty damn well for him. So it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out as far as, it always takes 3 or 4 years for you to really evaluate a draft. So, we'll have to look back on this one day. But
and oh, that's the lady UConn. I will go on record of saying that I will welcome Lonzo Ball with open arms to New York City.
Come on, easily,
dude. Are you kidding me? Okay, so look at it like this. I would put Lonzo in the starting lineup and then let Rose and IQ both come off the bench because they seem to have a real nice chemistry with one another.
Yeah.
Like IQ feels more comfortable, I think, playing as the 2 guard than he does playing as the point guard. And obviously Derrick Rose, we know, is a true point guard for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Lonzo coming and on top of that, Lonzo's 3-point percentage this year is like through the roof.
Really good. I think he's shooting better 3-point percentage than I think some of the best 3-point shooters in the league. I don't know who it was, but yeah, he has a better shooting percentage this year than some of the best, most established shooters in the league. And by the way, there's another rumor that has Charlotte in on Lonzo, that possibly trying to reunite him with his brother, which if anything is just a really dope story. But also, they have the pieces to move. What's that?
That
could be scary, right? And then not only that, Lonzo, the one thing about Lonzo is he's a really good defender. Like he has groomed himself
into.
That's
why I want him in New York. Exactly why I want him in New York. You kidding me? Dude, forget about the 3-point shot. The fact that he's a defender and a facilitator, please.
Perimeter defense, that's top notch. So
you're gonna tell me you can pass the ball off to Mitch when he's healthy, Julius when he's healthy. Well, he is healthy, but Julius, because I don't really like Julius playing the point forward. I just like him setting in the post and just bullying the piss out of anybody because he can probably do that to maybe 90% of the other 4s that are in the league.
Yeah.
But you're gonna tell me that you could pass off to who else we got shooting the ball out there? Oh, RJ Barrett, Alec Burks, some of these other shooters that we have on the squad as a facilitator. And then when he's open, he can hit threes too. Please name me the asking price. I will even throw in either our pick or Dallas's pick, because if they're both making the playoffs and it's going to be 15 and below, who gives a crap?
Yeah,
exactly, dude. That's why earlier I was saying I don't understand what the Oklahoma City Thunder are doing, hoarding 19 first-round draft picks for the next 7 years. For flipping what?
Yeah, and then on top of that, like they've got like 5 or 6 young guys on the team that they think are going to be on the core of their team. Like, this guy Moses Brown, who, man, I don't know where the hell this guy came from, but he beat up on the Bulls. He had like 20, 15, and 5 blocks against the Bulls. Came out of nowhere. They're going to trade Al Horford soon. That's another thing, is they're going to trade Al Horford soon.
Oh, yeah, most
I don't know who it's going to be, but they have to trade Al Horford soon. And then, by the way, we saw another trade, the PJ Tucker go to Milwaukee, which that cost them a lot. I don't know if you saw what they gave up, but Milwaukee gave up a lot for PJ Tucker. So Milwaukee's just all in right now. They gave up all that for Drew Holiday. They went all in on Giannis, and then now with PJ Tucker, which, by the way, like, I know Milwaukee is pretty good, but like, is PJ Tucker the missing piece for Milwaukee necessarily?
No,
probably not.
It's not. You want to know what the missing piece for Milwaukee is? Getting rid of Mark Budenholzer. Like, no offense. Like, no offense. I mean, I hate to be this guy, but what? Okay, I remember when he was fired from Atlanta, and there were people like, man, Mark Budenholzer with the New York Knicks are a match made in heaven and this and that, right? And then the next thing you know, he gets hired by Milwaukee and everyone said the same thing. Oh, it's such a match made in heaven. And I'm sitting here thinking like, no, it's not. This is the same Mark Budenholzer that had these surprising Atlanta Hawks, 62-20, and the best team in the NBA that year. And you got swept by LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. You couldn't even give them 2 games to work with.
Yeah.
Please. And then Atlanta was a shell of themselves the next year. They got fired. And the same exact playoff woes that I talked about Budenholzer when he was with Atlanta, you saw last year or the year that Toronto won the NBA championship. He did the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. You're up 2-0 on the Toronto Raptors. You got them by the nuts, and you took it easy on them, and you left them off the hook.
You basically let Pascal Siakam go crazy on you and
go super nuts, right? Because you don't have a 6'11" Greek freak with a 7'6" wingspan that for all of a sudden can't stop Pascal Siakam. Really, bro?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, that was I agree. I think Mike Budenholzer's got a short leash. But again, like, that's another thing about the East is, like, you can win a good amount of games and be in playoff position in the East pretty easily and save your job with that. So we'll see exactly how that shakes out. But it's looking Brooklyn is very slowly but surely sort of separating themselves from the pack, and that Blake Griffin addition is I mean, depending on how healthy Blake is, the starting five of Kyrie, Harden, Durant, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan. I know this isn't the Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan of the Clippers, so I'm not going too crazy here, but man, that is a nice team. But again,
it's a solid starting five.
What's that?
It's a solid
It's a solid, and not only that, depth-wise, we were talking a lot about how depth has been bad for them, but I mean, they've been, Durant's been out a couple games here and there, Kyrie's been out a couple games here and there, and they just find ways to win games. And I know it's against a lot of these Eastern teams that probably they should beat, but still, man, it's pretty crazy to see. But I'm not necessarily. I think a lot of people are crowning them a little bit too soon right now, especially on these media outlets like ESPN, just all over their nuts about being the best team. Like, I think I saw something like, I don't know if it was one of those morning shows, was like, is this the best team of all time? And it's like, come on, dude, like, let's not even talk in that vein until they at least win one.
The breaks just
a little bit until they win a championship, and then we can have some of those crazy conversations. But until then, no. So we only got around a half hour here left, so I want to try and fly through a little bit of NHL. I want to try and fly through a little bit of UFC, because next week we're going to come heavy with MLB next week. I know we've tried to get to the MLB the last couple of weeks, but obviously, we've had some short hiatuses. But the Blackhawks, there's really not much to talk about right now. They've had a terrible last couple of games, and by the way, they're getting their asses kicked again by Tampa Bay right now. I think it's 4-1. We talked about how they beat up on Dallas, Detroit, Nashville, and Columbus a lot. And when they face teams like, I think they beat Florida, but when they face teams like Carolina and Tampa Bay, and even the last couple of games against the Blue Jackets haven't gone too particularly well for them either. So Blackhawks are going to be losing 4 in a row, but still in a pretty good position in the Central Division. As far as the East is concerned, I know New York is making up some ground right now, or at least trying to. But trying to, yeah. But the top of that division, man, is pretty. That's a strong. Pittsburgh, the Islanders, Washington, and Boston. That's a strong top 4. That's tough, which, again, like, the Blackhawks don't have that in their division right now. So what are you thinking of? I know the Rangers have been, pretty much like 500 for a lot of the last, 10 games? Yeah, so, is it looking on the upwards right now?
I mean, I'm not sure really what to make of New York right now. I think the problem is there's just not enough consistency. So the other day, we put up a 9 spot on the Flyers. I mean, they just
without a coaching staff.
With no coaching staff, we put up a 9 spot on the Philadelphia Flyers.
I would have just fired them right then. I'd been like, you know what? You guys can stay home for the rest of the damn season if they're in play like this.
Which the reason why, okay, I would keep an eye on that. They play the Capitals again tonight. If the Rangers somehow come out and play with some kind of energy, I wouldn't be shocked if something happens. There is no way you're going to tell me a team with Panarin, Zibanejad. Now, I think Zibanejad's problem was he's starting to get his feet back together. I think he really was more affected by that COVID than he really wanted to lead on to. And I think he should have taken more time off. I think it's one of those, with pride, I want to play this and that. Yeah. But dude, if your legs not underneath you and everybody and their mama can see that something is wrong, but he's getting his feet back underneath him. So Panarin, Kreider, Lafreniere, Ryan Strome, Mika Zibanejad, Who else we have on this team?
And those goalies too. That's another thing. You got goalies that can be game changers.
Man, Georgiev's been struggling here and there. Like, he played. What happened to the Rangers? Same thing happened to the Bulls. They played great for 2.5 periods, and then 5 minutes left in the third period. All of a sudden, Alexander Ovechkin. People forget that this man's slap shot accuracy and power is through the roof. And on 2 slap shots, in a matter of a minute and a half apart from one another, next thing you knew, the Washington Capitals were up 2-0. 2-1.
Yeah.
I'm just like, come on, dude. So let's say the Rangers come out tonight and they smack the Capitals 4-2, I would not be shocked if that comes into the conversation, because even though they couldn't score yesterday, defensively they were much better. We shut out the Flyers the night before, and if they play well again tonight, because this kid Chris Knobloch doesn't switch up lines in the middle of the flipping game, which is what David Quinn tends to do. Something doesn't work. Okay, guys, we got to switch up the lines. How about you let the guys get the feet wet first so they can?
And we practice all week in these lines. Why am I changing now? Yeah.
Thank you, dude.
Yeah.
And for some reason, David Quinn. So when I'm seeing teams like the Islanders win like 9 games in a row, and Boston's winning, it's gonna make it tough. The Rangers have a winning streak in them. I think they really need to get it when Shesterkin comes back, because at the end of the day, Shesterkin is our starting goalie.
Right.
Georgiev needs to be exactly what he is, and that's the backup. And David Quinn, at some point, I know that these games are kind of close, but you got to let Shesterkin, when he comes back, play a few of these games in a row. Yeah. None of this, well, we don't know who's going to be in net. No, because you don't have the chemistry. It's the same thing. Like, it's the one thing that I think that the Rangers did a terrible job when it came to Henrik Lundqvist to an extent. Henrik Lundqvist, in my opinion, was a great goalie, but his greatness is what made him as tired as he was towards the end of his Rangers career, because everyone's like, man, dude, nothing gets past Henrik Lundqvist. So we're just going to let him see 45 shots a flipping day and know that he'll stop 42 or 43 of them, but we can put 6 go. No, I don't want him to see 45 shots a game. Yeah. It's okay for Henrik to see 20 shots a game, but then when you would bring in Cam Talbot, who you know is not as good as Henrik, 20 shots, 15 shots, 25 shots going into the last 2 minutes of the third. Houseway, and I think that burnt out Henrik. And it's the same thing now. It's like, okay, Igor's in the game, but that doesn't mean the defensive intensity slows down, because Igor is a beast. Dude, he needs the same defensive love as you give Georgiev and Kincaid. You got to give the same effort. Yeah. And whenever the Rangers decide to give the same effort, we can slowly try to creep up to that 4th spot and maybe challenge Philadelphia for that spot. But bro, they got to do something, because before you know, it's going to be over with. And then the Rangers are probably going to get another top 3 pick. And at that point, I would be like, trade that pick to Buffalo for Jack Eichel and stop flipping playing. Yeah. Like, how many more young kids do we need?
I'm surprised that somebody hasn't already jumped on that, to be quite honest, man. Like, the whole Jack
maybe
Eichel
because Buffalo's going to ask for both arms, both legs, and the entire body, severed,
But you and I both know that there is a team out there that would do, like, we've seen it in the past. Like, I know, like, Toronto's probably not in a position to do that, but like they have a crazy enough ownership where if they wanted to, they would probably get the okay to go and do something like that. So it might take an organization that's stupid to do it, but yeah, dude, that whole Buffalo thing is a really weird thing, and I know they just fired their coach as well. So I feel bad for the kid, because man, he is special. He is on some next level shit when it comes to especially like making chances on a bad team. Like, to be able to do what he's done on such a bad team is pretty impressive. So yeah. And also, by the way, before you jump off this, I wouldn't like. Somebody has to start calling about Georgiev too, because if you're gonna go back to Igor as full-time guy, there's a lot of teams in this league, including my team, that are like, dude, we could use a guy like him full time, because I know Kevin Lankinen has had a lot of hype this year, but like, how many times, Nick, in your time watching NHL hockey, have you seen a goalie that nobody's ever heard of come out gangbusters for his first 30 career games? Oh my God, this guy's one of the best in the league. And the next thing you know, 5 or 6 games pass by after that conversation, and you're talking about this guy's probably average.
I got one off the top of my head. You ready?
Yeah.
Because he was a former Blackhawk, but he didn't do it as a Blackhawk. Cristobal Huet was that.
Yeah, dude, that's a great example.
Was in Montreal.
Montreal, yeah.
Everyone was calling him the French Wall, and he was such a phenom.
Yeah.
And nothing could get past Cristobal Huet. And he was so much ass because he sucked so bad that Carey Price had to come in to become MVP. Yeah. And then they got rid of him and traded him to the Blackhawks. And then he sucked so bad in Chicago.
I can confirm things got past him in Chicago. Like, nothing got past him there, but things got past him in Chicago.
Man, dude, Cristobal Huet is the first name that jumps on my list about that.
So yeah, I'm starting to think of that with Kevin Lankinen. Unfortunately, I like Lankinen a lot, but it's like any sport, Nick. It's like, once they get tape on you, once they can start to research you and your moves and what you're doing, your tendencies. I don't care if you're a quarterback. I don't care if you're a point guard. I don't care if you're, what position you play in what sport. The more you play, the more they're going to figure you out. And I think that's what we're seeing with Lankinen. And we already knew that Malcolm Subban was not the answer as well. So again, like, teams that hold on to 2 really good goalies with high potential and say, well, we'll play them both. To me, that's doing a disservice to both of them, because, like, you mentioned it with a guy like Shesterkin. I mean, you look at some of the saves and some of the games that this guy had last year, and you go, this guy's a bona fide starter. He should be, other than his feet not being under him or rest, this guy should be, between the pipes every game.
Every game, bro. Georgiev should only be in there. And hey, look, if the price is right, I'm really trading him, because Kincaid is not that bad of a backup goalie either. Mm-hmm. So if the phone came ringing and somebody wanted Georgiev, especially when Shesterkin comes back and he's healthy, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to end up losing Georgiev in the draft coming up anyway, in the expansion draft. So either you get him for something now, or you lose him in the expansion draft.
That's a good point.
I think Georgiev is a starting goalie, and the Rangers are not giving up on Shesterkin. They're not.
Yeah, so, he's got some generational talent in him, Shesterkin. Nick, we weren't here. I wasn't here. Actually, neither one of us are here to talk about the Blachowicz Adesanya fight. We talked about our thoughts on it, but we didn't talk about the results. And you kind of hit it on the head with your prediction, if I remember correctly, man. You were talking about how, Israel sort of has the skills to get in there, but Jan was still in this because of how big he was, first of all, and how, powerful he was. And we saw that. I mean, I thought some of the judges' cards were pretty off on that.
Awful, bro.
Yeah, really bad.
Awful, bro. Yeah. Dude, those referees were sucking balls the entire night.
The whole night, yeah.
What was the fight?
Oh. I know what you're talking about. It was
was it the Jan fight where they had one of those guys?
No, so the Peter Yan, that's the one that ended in DQ, where he kneed Aljamain while he was on the ground. But I think one of them was not the Dominic Cruz fight. You know what? I think it was the Makhachev versus Drew Dober one. That no, because he finished him. He finished him. Yeah.
In one of those, they had. Oh my God! I know one of the Nunes fight. And you're right. It was one of those cards, dude. They had one of those guys winning like
2 10-8 rounds. Yeah, I think it was like one of them was 2. In order for that score to be correctly, the fighter would have had to have won 2 10-8 rounds and 1 10-9 round, which is basically like saying that the person wiped the floor. A 10-8 round. That's another thing that Dana White is really pissed off about, is this new 10-8 round phenomenon with judges. Judges are not understanding what a 10-8 round. 10-8 round means you literally controlled from 1 second to 5 minutes in the round. That is a full domination. And that was the thing that bothers me about Jan, was I think one of the judges gave Jan 1 or 2 10-8 rounds, and there was no 10-8 rounds in that fight.
Because I think in the Jan fight, they actually read out some of those scores. Either they read out the scores, or Cormier and big head ass Joe Rogan was off the entire night.
Yeah.
That's
what it was.
One of the guys had Jan up
10, it was 8, two judges had it Jan 49-45. That would mean that he would have to have won 10-8 rounds there, and there was no 10-8 rounds in that fight. It was, I think Adesanya, to me, I thought it was closer than what they gave Jan credit for, because I thought Adesanya won the first 2 rounds pretty handily. But I also do agree, and I know you and I probably share this, Joe Rogan's not very good at doing that anymore. It's a lot of like, oh, and it's like somebody just jabs somebody else, and it's like, oh my God, and then like Jan hits Israel with a jab that puts Israel's head back, and he's like, nice jab by Jan, and it's like, I'm sorry, but that because of how quiet it is in the arena, that controls the judges. Like when the judges are hearing, I know this sounds crazy to say because they're focusing on the fight, but when you hear DC and Joe Rogan going crazy about a little over nothing, it affects the way that you judge a fight. So the way Adesanya won the first 2 rounds, really all he needed to do was squeak out 1 round of the last 3, which I agree. Listen, Jan controlled Izzy, and in that 5th round, that what really killed Izzy was that takedown towards the end of the round that really, really sealed it for Jan. And I'm not necessarily mad about the result. I thought Jan, you could make a case for the fight, him winning the fight, but holy cow, the judges have been really bad lately.
Awful, bro. Absolutely awful. So that's what I got out of it. The thing that drove me nuts about Joe Rogan was the Amanda Nunes fight. So she comes out and just beats the absolute brakes out of Megan Anderson.
Yeah.
First word out of freaking dumbass's mouth, Joe Rogan. So Amanda, who's gonna fight you next? Dude, why are we worried about that right now?
Yeah, there's no one left for her.
Let's talk about her dominating Megan.
Yeah.
Let's talk about her. Let's talk about her now being a new mom.
And possibly now putting herself in the conversation of greatest MMA fighter of all time.
GOAT.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about what exactly is Amanda Nunes supposed to say? Like, cause she said exactly what she's supposed to. Hey, whoever they can find, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to step up.
It's also not her fault the UFC can't find somebody competent to fight her. Like, they had Cyborg. The Cyborg fight, first of all, I don't care what anyone says. They should have ran that back, and they let Cyborg go. And now Cyborg's gone. She's the other best female fighter that she's pretty much the only person at featherweight that can take on Amanda. And now the only fight left, unfortunately, is Valentina. And Valentina now has herself a defense to do against Jessica Andrade. So that puts even more pressure on her, because if she loses that, who do you put in front of Amanda now? And it's a real big problem, because it's like, you can't keep putting these scrubs. I mean, I'm sorry, Megan Anderson's not a scrub, but she was not ready for this fight. Like, it was just nowhere near the level of power and just tact as well. Because remember, it's easy to have power, but it's not easy to be able to execute that power without getting hit and not putting yourself in dangerous positions. And she almost never puts herself in dangerous positions, always has the other fighter wobbled, and there's really nothing that any other ladies can do. So Megan Anderson, by the way, is a badass. Like, she's very tall, very lanky, can hit, and has good, joint strikes, elbows, and knees, but just no match for Amanda, unfortunately. And then the Aljamain Sterling Peter Yan fight was a very disappointing. I mean, Yan was dominating in my book, and obviously round 4, all he really had to do was just finish that round, Peter, and then finish the 5th round, and he was going to be and still. And unfortunately, I don't know what to blame this on, Nick. It's like people are saying, well, his corner was saying go ahead and kick, but then the ref was telling him don't. So it's like, You listen to the ref in that situation. Like,
Right.
I'm sorry, but you don't yell out to your corner, do I punch now? Nobody does that, right? Nobody goes, should I punch him? Like, that's not what happens in a UFC fight. So you're listening for the ref, and when the ref is clearly telling you that is you cannot knee or you cannot hit him at this point, you have to listen to that. So some people are saying maybe it's a language barrier thing. Some people, I'm sorry, but Petr Yan, he speaks English. Like, he doesn't speak great English. You could clearly hear.
He speaks English,
yeah,
and he's speaking clear English on his Twitter because he's still talking mad smack to Aljamain Sterling, talking about he's the real champ. Yeah. No, you're not. And then that was another controversy too. You know, now all of a sudden you're bringing these WWE rules into the UFC, talking about if a man gets disqualified, should he be able to keep his title? How about no? This isn't the WWE. Yeah, maybe you could do that in WWE because it's entertainment. That's the rules. A man blatantly kneed a man who was on 2 knees. And you're not going to sit here. First of all, DC swears up and down that Khabib came over there and told him that his corner told him in Russian that he was able to hit him. That's what DC's claiming Khabib was saying. I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah. Here's what I do know. First off, you know it's blatantly illegal.
Yeah.
For
you should know the rules. Yeah.
You should know the rules. Yeah. So when you see both of Sterling's knees down, you're really in Russian, you're yelling out to your corner saying, can I legally hit him? Second off, correct me if I'm wrong, but his corner kept telling him, let his ass up.
Right.
With you standing up. And Petr Yan was for whatever reason tempted to keep fighting him on the ground.
He wanted to prove that he could out grapple and out ground Aljamain, which was dumb and egotistical. Stupid. Yeah.
Beyond stupid. And that's why, it's not so much why he lost, but he lost because of the DQ. But no, he had every right to lose his title. Now, people are like, oh, he's faking. He's not really that hurt. Have you ever taken a knee strike to the head? I'm pretty sure it's not that great.
That was nasty. Yeah,
it was nasty. Yeah. So no, I don't think Aljamain was faking. I think he was legit hurt. And Aljamain and Petr Yan have not been shy to talk smack to one another on Twitter back and forth until this thing happens. But
they're going to run that back too. They have to run that back.
They're easily running it back. As soon as Aljamain is cleared by whatever athletic board that we're following in the UFC, the minute that he's cleared, that match is going to get made, and it's going to be a fun one. But here's a crazy thing. First of all, if Aljamain learned to slow down every once in a while, you know, maybe he wouldn't be getting rocked every 5 minutes. I mean, dude, everything was speed. Dude, slow down a minute. Take a breath for a minute.
It seemed like after he took a couple hits after the first round and a half, he started rushing in his approach, trying to rush in. And I think Petr is such a smart fighter. He knew that he was going to keep goading him into coming in and eating punches. And Aljamain was towards the end was just desperate to get it to the ground because that's his biggest asset. But at the end of the day, and I talked about this, I really thought Aljamain was going to be more creative in his striking. I thought he was going to do a lot more of the kicks, especially the calf kicks, the lower leg kicks, the thigh kicks, to try and get Petr to at least loosen up on his lead leg. But that never happened, and Aljamain was very one-dimensional, and definitely wouldn't have won that fight if it went to 5 rounds. But again, the rules are the rules. I don't necessarily think you should be able to crown a champ on a disqualification. I just don't think that that's a thing. But again, you know, if that's what the rules are, that's what the rules are, but they'll be running that back. But eerily enough, we had another, 2 situations like that happen in the fight night last week with Belal Muhammad and Leon Edwards, including the eventual so we had a no contest between Eric Anders and Darren Stewart. That was over another illegal strike that Eric Anders had thrown with a knee, oddly enough. And then the Belal Muhammad one, which there was a lot of people talking shit about Belal Muhammad, that he was faking it. Dude, when you look at the video and the slow-mo of that, he literally put his finger in his eye and pulled his eyelid towards him. Like, he had his finger in his eye and pulled his eyelid, and then people were like, Muhammad's faking it. How can so? And it's like, that dude was. If you look at that reaction, that was genuine pain. absolute disappointment because he knew he wasn't going to be able to finish the fight. First ever, main event for Muhammad. But that was another example of like Leon Edwards beating up on Muhammad, and all he had to do was just keep his fingers from getting in the other person's eye, and you win that fight. And then Leon Edwards goes on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he's like, yeah, I don't know, we're not going to do that again. I only did that because Bilal stepped up on last second. I'm going to try and go for this guy, and that guy. And, give credit to Joe Rogan. He said, you know what, I'm sorry, Leon, but I think you need to run that back. Like, there's no way you can just say, oh, no, we're not going to run that back. You got to run that back.
You got to run it back. You got to run it back.
And Bilal deserves it.
Hey, you know what I would say, dude? Okay, if you don't want to crown a new champion on the DQ, that's fine. Take the title, suspend it in the air on some ladder match like shit, and then just leave it up there. So
I agree.
Like when you're just looking at the title, because it's a vacant title at this point, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a vacant title at this point.
If you can do what do they do when somebody's hurt? They call it something else. It's
interim
like
champion.
Interim, right? Okay, you know what? It's a vacant interim champion right now. That's what it is. The next time these two fight, they're going to be fighting for a vacant title. But the fact of, and then, I'm sorry, I like Aljamain, but like the fact that he did the whole act where he threw down the belt and this isn't it, and that's not how I wanted to win. And then like literally that night he was on IG with like the, dancing with, and it's like,
yes, he was.
It's like, okay, you got to find a balance here because like remember when Justin Gaethje, for example, when he won the interim title, he threw that shit to the ground and never picked it up again. He wanted to fight Khabib and make sure that he fought Khabib and beat him before he put the title on. Aljamain kind of did the show in front of the cameras and said all the right things in front of Joe Rogan and everything like that, but then afterwards was partying like he had just won the title. So I kind of see the frustration there, but I do want to go through so tonight's Brunson versus Holland. It's going to be a fun main event. The fight or the card overall has been hit again with some last second outages. So it went from I think 12 fights to 9 fights now tonight. Couple of pretty good fights on the main card. Tai Tuivasa, Harry Hunsucker. That's going to be a good one. And then, Derek Brunson and Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's kind of a growing he's a growing phenomenon right now in the middleweight division. And a lot of people are saying if Kevin Holland has an amazing fight, there's a possibility he could fight Israel Adesanya. I think Adesanya said he probably wouldn't do that. But next week, though, Stipe versus Francis, baby. Woo!
Yes, sir. You know good goddamn well I am not driving next Saturday.
No, hell no.
You already know I am in this house watching the soon-to-be. And, dude, I have been all over Francis Ngannou's Twitter. Like, dude, I've been retweeting everything, quoting everything. This man is working. Stipe has no idea when he's coming up again. Because if Francis catch Stipe one time on that fat-ass jaw hits, it's a wrap. It is a wrap, dude.
Yeah. Watching some of those replays of like that Overeem knockout where like his head almost came off of the rest of his body with that punch.
Bro, his toes were curled, bro. His toes would not uncurl for like 10 minutes.
And by the way,
it was about the most flush
Francis is a savage. He knocked him out in one punch and then hit him with like 3 more, like wanted to hit him 4 or 5 more times because he just is an animal in the octagon. And I agree with you. I think the one big thing that Stipe had in that first fight was confidence. And the one thing that Francis lacked was confidence. But, dude, now this guy's nothing but confidence after that Rosenstruik. And then seeing the way Rosenstruik sort of, fought Gane. I know Cyril Gane and Derek Lewis is probably the fight to make next. But, again, you've got a couple options, especially after last week.
I'd love to see that fight, by the way.
The Gane versus
Lewis.
I think that's
because unfortunately that's the one we're gonna get because Dana White, and we'll get on his dumb ass here in a sec. Dana White is so gung-ho to put John Bones Jones in a match against whoever's going to win the heavyweight championship as if he deserves it. Dude, piss off.
And good luck with that because if he has to face Francis, dude, I wouldn't be surprised if John Jones changes his tune because he's talking a lot of mess right now. But that dude Francis easily has – and we saw how big it is to have weight on your opponent with the Jan and Israel fight because, as good as Israel is on the ground – I'm sorry, dude. You can't make up for 40 pounds. You cannot make up for 40 pounds, especially at this high of a level. And then, I think I do want to talk to you because before we wrap, like, now we talked about a little bit before the mics went on, like, Khabib, it's official. He's officially retired. And it's like, he's officially been retired for months now. The only person that doesn't believe him is Dana White, and Dana's just so thirsty right now. Dana really, really wants to try and get Khabib back I think really what he wants to do is he wants to try and bring Khabib back for another Conor fight because he knows the numbers on that will probably go crazy. But to be honest, is that even a guarantee anymore after what Dustin did to Conor? Like, if anything, you would need Conor to beat Dustin in the rematch, possibly even beat another guy after that, because you're not going to just gift wrap him Khabib after he goes 1-1 against Dustin Poirier, right? So but Khabib said, no, I'm done. And to be quite honest, I think we both believed him when he first started, but I think just all the news and him being all around the events the last couple of months has given people the idea he's been thinking about it. But apparently he said, I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just kind of like, I've always been retired, and I've just been people are trying to convince me to unretire, and he's not going to do it. So he had a great career, and again, I don't know if he'll go down as a GOAT, but I'm not sure we'll ever see. He's in the convo. And also, Nick, I'm not sure we'll ever see anybody in the UFC go undefeated again. It's very hard to imagine who is left. I mean, Israel was undefeated in the UFC. He's now no longer undefeated. I know there's a couple of guys that are in the conversation as far as, like, up and comers. But dude, in this day and age, it's very hard to be undefeated in the UFC.
Right. Because you can lose at any given night on any given shot, So
and the judges suck. The judges suck. Like, you're like, that's another thing that bothers me is these boxing judges. That's really what the issue is. The issue is you have boxing judges judging MMA, and you've got judges who don't know what the hell's going on the ground, and don't understand the dynamics of what a ground game is, what grappling is, what wrestling is, takedown defense, takedowns. And it's very obvious with some of these 10-8 rounds that are coming out. And again, Dana White, as much as I shit on him, he has been very, very adamant about the fact that the judges are doing a terrible job right now. And I think they're taking away money from some of these guys. But I think the UFC now, and by the way, we mentioned when the mics were off, the UFC is going to go all in to try and, put in a sold out. They want to be, so they're unfortunately probably not going to be the first sold out crowd or full capacity crowd in sports. I think there was another, I don't think it's WWE, but there's another, that's what it is. The Rangers. The Rangers are going to probably...
Rangers came out and said 100%.
So the Rangers will be technically the first pro team or pro sports that will have a full capacity, but that's what Dana was going in for that. So and we have a little bit of a YouTube comment for you, Nick, before we go here. Rob C from YouTube, he says, "This dude a bandwagon Tampa Bums fan."
I love how everyone calls me such a bandwagon fan. Dude, it's hilarious. I did a DoorDash out here the other day, and I was bucked up because I got a buck mask, and I was wearing my coach's shirt. And this guy's like, "Oh, you're a bandwagon fan." Yeah, okay. You don't know anything about me, so no, I'm not a bandwagon fan. Been a Bucks fan since '94. I've been with this team when we were going 5-11, 3-13.
I was gonna say you're a bad bandwagon fan if you're a bandwagon fan because you didn't jump off the bandwagon when they were
exactly.
shitty.
So no, I'm far from bandwagon. Well, so I'm pretty sure you must like the Saints or something because most Ain't fans who are still crying the blues. Which, oh, by the way, I love how everyone comes at me with this humility crap, dude. Let me explain something to everybody when it comes to me. I don't root for rivals in no way, shape, or form. Yeah. So when when I see, and I've seen fellow Yankee fans do this, and it pisses me off. When the Boston Red Sox win the World Series, I'm the last person to ever congratulate the
and
Boston
they're like,
Red
yeah,
Sox.
congrats to the Boston Red Sox. It's been a long time coming. As a Yankees fan, I appreciate baseball, so congrats, Boston. And it's like, okay. Like,
Exactly, because you know who used to do that? George Steinbrenner. But George Steinbrenner did it to piss off the Yankees because he was mad that another team other than the Yankees didn't win the World Series.
Yeah.
That was his mentality. He didn't do it because he was such a humble owner. No, he did it as a diss to his own team.
Yeah.
Like, I paid all this money for you guys, and you have the flipping Detroit Tigers going to the World Series before us. Like, what the hell are we doing here? You know, and so and exactly. So no, don't. And so I don't root for rivals. So when I saw that Drew Brees retired, my exact quote, and I misquoted. It's my own fault. Like, I didn't watch the game. But the last pass that I'm going to notably know Drew Brees was that he got picked off when he threw Jared Cook, and what's his name was right there to pick it off.
That's right. Yeah,
that's what I'm going to remember Drew Brees by. I'm going to remember Drew Brees by a guy who stat padded his entire career, never won MVP. Who by some luck of Jesus beat Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. That's what I'm going to remember Drew Brees as. I'm going to remember Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints basically being a joke of a meme for a team who in the last 5 years has scored 20 points and the wheels fall right out of them when they go to the Super Bowl. So no, I'm not here to all of a sudden give this newfound respect to Drew Brees. I'm not rooting for a guy who beat my team for an umpth amount of years, and I'm glad that he's gone. So you could throw that humility crap out of the window. I don't roll like that. Yeah. If Drew Brees would have played for the Chicago Bears, I'd put him on a pedestal. Drew Brees played for the New Orleans Saints, and they're my rivals, and he can kiss my ass for all I care. I am not the same sports fan as everybody else. Yeah. See, that's what drives me nuts about today's America. Remember when everyone got pissed off about with Tom Brady? Talking about Tom Brady didn't shake Nick Foles' hand after the game, and I got kids. And what kind of role model is that to kids? And I'm like, you guys are such idiots. Yeah, you're right. Because there's never going to be a day where your son is so upset because he didn't play well that he's not going to go shake hands. Tom Brady did exactly what he was supposed to do. He was embarrassed that he forgot what down it was. The Bucs overall looked like crap against Chicago. And in the very next week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went into Raymond James Stadium and Peter slapped the Green Bay Packers up and down Raymond James Field. And you think I'm going to sit here and cry and give a rat's monkey ass because Tom Brady didn't shake Nick Foles' hand? Man, get out of here, dude. Like, as a guy who's very competitive, I'll be damned if I'm going to shake a hand of a guy who just whooped my ass. What kind of nonsense is that? What are we teaching our kids, that it's okay to lose? Because that's basically what you're telling me. And I've been wanting to rant on this for a minute because everybody on my Facebook with sons come at me with this. He's a role model, this and that. As a 37-year-old man, I could give a rat's ass left if Tom Brady shakes hands or doesn't shake hands. Because there have been plenty of NFL people. Isaiah Thomas didn't shake Michael Jordan's hand. Isaiah Thomas is a rival to Michael Jordan. Yeah. But according to Bulls fans, that was so ignorant. That was dumb. You shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have shaken Michael Jordan's hand if he'd have just whooped my ass to go to the finals. Yeah. Hey, Mike, thanks for whooping my ass. This is a show of sportsmanship.
Yeah.
You piss off.
This whole idea of doing it for the kids, like do it for the kids.
Thank you. Thank you. F them kids. How about I do it for myself? Like, no offense to nobody, but dude, I can go on about this all day. Like at the end of the day, like, I understand trying to be sensitive to kids and stuff, but where does the line get drawn, bro? Like, where does the line get drawn? Like, where does the line get drawn when like every move I make has to be like, you know, for the betterment of the kids and all this and that and everything else? Because no offense to anything, but like, I'm kind of like a stepdad to Kai in here, and I'm gonna tell you right now that there's gonna be a day that I'm gonna give her advice that's not gonna be popular, but it's going to make sense. Yeah. And when the day comes that you apply it, it's gonna make sense. But what I'm not gonna do is I would never mislead her and to tell her, you know what, it's probably great that you go out there and shake hands. If you want to, fine. But if you lose because you know you played like crap and you know that you're better, Okay, then get your ass in the lab, get yourself better, and I expect you to whoop that ass the next time, or you just wasting your time. That's the best. But I'd be damned if I'm gonna sit here and the people that I saw grow up, like, no offense, but when Karl Malone lost to the Chicago Bulls twice, he didn't go over to shake Michael Jordan's hand when the NBA Finals was over with. He walked off the court. Who that dude? I don't get it, bro.
This whole idea that athletes have to be role models so that your children, it's a joke, dude. It's like, you know what, if they want to be, or if they are an example, that's great, but also, like, you as a parent are responsible for, like, who and how your child is affected by stuff. So if, like, you give your child the permission to say, yeah, well, I see why you're disappointed at Tom Brady for not shaking Nick Foles' hands. That was disrespectful. No, you should say, you know what? First of all, that has nothing to do with you. And has nothing, like, honestly, Tom Brady's his own person. Like, it's just silly, like, this idea that, like, for the kids, I can't believe that Tom Brady would. And I saw that too on your Facebook of, like, people were like, well, Drew Brees had a tremendous career. How could you say all the? And it's like, dude, I really am. I'm really disappointed in the fact that you can no longer be mean in this country. Like, the idea that you have to be nice all the time. Fuck off. You do not have to be nice all the time.
And you know what the funny part is? It's the same people that are talking about the country being wussified are the same people mad at Tom Brady for not shaking Nick Foles' hand.
Yeah.
Dude, I swear to God, dude, the hypocrisy of us is flipping real. Our country is soft as hell. Oh my God, but Tom Brady didn't shake Nick Foles' hand when he lost to him. Who's being soft?
Yeah, no, it's
the same people crying about Pepe Le Pew being canceled are the same idiots crying about Tom Brady not shaking somebody's hand.
Or like three out of 60 Dr. Seuss books come off the shelf and like, oh, they canceled Dr. Seuss. I cannot believe. And it's like, no, 3 Dr. Seuss books are no longer on the shelves because the family said that they're racist. Move on with your life.
But. Oh my God, Tom Brady cannot be a role model to me or my kids because he didn't shake Nick Foles. He's such a jackass. That's my favorite.
Right.
Tom Brady is such a jerk. You're right. The same guy who took an ex-out football player and put his name on it, all of a sudden is such a jackass over a shaking hand. Yeah. Dude, you want to know what's making the country soft? Some of these parents are making the country soft. And I will sit here with a straight face and tell you that because, again, dude. 9 times out of 10, and I'm gonna start doing it to you. 9 times out of 10, when I make certain statuses that I know are gonna troll people, I go straight to Christian like, "Hey, watch this and watch the comments on my page." I'll say something, and 150 comments later, "Oh my God, Nick, you're so way off base. Oh my God, you don't have kids. Oh my God." And I'd be like, now you see why I do what I'm gonna start doing it to you. I'm be like, hey Mac, watch what I'm finna say, dude. And just pay attention to the comments. And dude, just watch it flow. Because I mean, like it could be either from sports or it could even be from today's issues. Yeah. Because we have a former classmate right now who forgot what the real definition of racism is. And I just want to go in so bad, but I always hold my tongue because I always say, Nick, this is not your fight. I am now, and because I'm on a rant and I'm kind of going at life right now, I am now at a point in my life where I'm starting to say that a lot of the fight that's going on in America has nothing to do with POCs. It has nothing to do with Black people. It has nothing to do with Hispanic people. It has nothing to do with my brothers and sisters from Middle Eastern descent or Asian descent. Nobody. This war that's going on here in America is an inside war amongst white people, and I want nothing to do with it. And it's going to be a very unpopular position. But think about it like this, bro. What Black person is affected that Pepe Le Pew is off of TV?
Yeah.
Not me,
or like a Hispanic person.
Thank you, because I just watched Looney Tunes the other night at 3:00 in the morning, and the first cartoon that popped on was Pepe Le Pew. So he must not be that canceled. Or my personal favorite in this world. You ready for this one? Here's my personal favorite in this world.
Hey, we got some breaking news actually. So it looks like VCU has been,
they've been kicked out of the tournament because of COVID protocol. So Oregon advanced automatically.
Wow. So a no contest will be scheduled, or it'll be a no contest between Oregon and VCU, and Oregon automatically onto the round of 32, which is pretty crazy, and I don't think that'll be the first time that happens. So we'll get more on that. But yeah, I think you mentioned something really, really important, which is like this whole the idea of like being offended, and you and I come from the era of like Opie and Anthony, shock jocks, nothing you Howard Stern, nothing you can say to me is going to make me offended, because I'm just going to come back at Don. Right. And even if you disagreed with those guys, like I was a big Opie and Anthony guy, and I did not really like Anthony or Opie for that matter. I just liked the comedians that they had on there. But this idea that, that was what was wrong with America, and some of the dialogue that we had was like, you're right, dude. Like anybody, I'm not really super upset about some of the portrayal of Middle Eastern people in America or in American media. It sucks, but it is what it is. But like the people who are offended for me are usually white people, and usually white liberals, to be quite honest. And it's gotten to the point where it's like, who represents who in this country anymore? And like, what are we kind of, because you're right in a way that it's like, there's only like going back to sort of to tie it back into like, do we have to be nice, and we have to make sure that like if Drew Brees retires, we have to give him his flowers. And it's like, you know what, dude, at the end of the day, the only way that people are going to like learn to be human amongst each other is to like realize that not everyone's going to be nice to you. Not everyone likes you. Like, that's another thing I tell my nieces. Like my niece has a classmate who's constantly, picking on her and bullying her. And I just tell her, listen, not everyone's going to like you, and you don't have to like everyone else. Not everyone's going to be nice to you. You don't have to be nice to everyone else. This idea that, you have to, treat everyone with a certain level. Like, respect is one thing, right? Like, you're not saying Drew Brees is garbage person, terrible father. You're just saying, I'm not going to sit here and suck this dude off because he's retired now. I'm sorry. Like, that's just what the reality of the situation is. So,
best thing I got out of that, bro. The best thing I got out of that is Tampa's winning the South next year. That's all the hell I got out of
right.
it.
Yeah, like, okay, congrats to Drew Brees. Thanks for the division title. Yeah,
thanks
right.
for the division title. And for you, we'll run it back as well.
Oh,
so
my
we
God.
can show you. And we can show Packer fans as well, because all of a sudden they become this dynasty on what it's like to win back-to-back Super Bowls. We'll show you guys how it's done.
Wow.
Freaking Bows.
Long story short, dude. Rob C., I appreciate your comment for YouTube, but in the words of former, I think you should cut the tape on and watch a little bit longer before you start to make judgments about my man Nick. So tune in next week and keep tuning in. You'll figure this out.
Bro, I got plenty of material for you if you need it, but I am no bandwagon fan, bro.
No,
I'm not a bandwagon fan at first, but I got to check my brackets, because I think I had Oregon going, so I will not cry.
I'm gonna cry too badly. Okay,
but I swear to God, if I pick VCU, breaking news out of Houston: man goes ballistic and burns down apartment building after VCU gets disqualified due to COVID protocol. Let's head to Houston right now. Man, I'm sick of this bullshit, man. They always messing up the country. I'm sick of this crap.
It's just you trash, and you're like just still like
throwing. P.O.P. Hold it down.
Pimp Squad. Oh, yeah.
That's right.
So yeah, Rob C. Yeah, Rob, as much as we appreciate you checking in on the show, man, stick around. I think you'll find out a little bit different about my man Nick. But anyways, again, guys, this was a long one just because we were deprived of being able to talk at you last week, and really excited to come in next week. I definitely, we're gonna get into MLB next week because we just really didn't get to do it very much today. But man, oh man, we're excited. I'm sure you're excited about those Yankees, and I'm excited about my boys as well this year. And by the way, I forgot we have a live show next week at Reps. So Nick, you will be still obviously in Texas, good old Texas, but I will be at Reps live, and we'll be doing the show from there. We'll have more details for you. I don't know, maybe Steve can communicate with me through here, but is that going to be open to the public, or are they at capacity? Like, do they have limited capacity, or is that something where just you and I are going to be over there? Because I want to definitely promote Reps.
Hey, that's a great question, dude. Are you guys opening up at all out there?
Yeah. So we're actually going to be live at Reps. We're going to be live at Reps next week, and it is going to be. Reps is open. We're opening up a lot more out in Illinois now, but I'm going to be interviewing all the aldermen in Rolling Meadows in the town beforehand, and then we're going to finish up with the sports stream at the end of the night. So it'll probably be around 3-ish to 6-ish. But yeah, it's not going to be open to the public. It'll be a closed room. But if you want to stop by and have a beer with us, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, and same thing as last time, Steve, where people were ordering to go. I'm telling you, dude, the food at Reps is fire. So,
hell yeah.
So definitely call in, and we'll put all the details in the description, or we'll definitely make sure to share that out on the page. But again, guys, live show next week, so we'll have a lot more. Again, I'll probably guess it'll be a long show next week as well, because we'll start to get into some of the baseball stuff, and then rmtalk.com for the details on that. So it's RM as in Rolling Meadows Talk, TALK.com for details on that. And again, guys, really appreciate your support on this, but we really want to, push this for you guys that are, watching on Facebook. Really appreciate it. Obviously, those that are on YouTube, really appreciate it. But listen to the audio. If you guys, are not able to kind of, adjust to the live stream, throw the audio on and go do your work, or go do your chores, or listen to us talk shit in your ear, because that would be, we're pretty good at this. So, if you're Facebook and YouTube, appreciate your help. But again, go listen to the audio on any platform that you use, iTunes, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. We're on there. And make sure to subscribe, please. We really appreciate it. Even if you're not going to listen from that app per se, please go ahead and subscribe. That would really help. And you know what? If you're on iTunes or one of these other ones, I think iTunes specifically really help if you give us a 5-star rating. I will come to your house and kiss you. But anyways, search Mack and Black Podcast as well. You'll find all the links. MackandBlack.com is a website, but you can also check out our other shows on the network, PodRiver.com. Steve was talking about his podcast, the Local Level Podcast, and next week it's going to be really exciting because he's going to be talking to a lot of the local aldermen too. So we've got a lot of great new shows coming soon. Really finally coming out of the funk of the last year or so with this COVID stuff. So we are going to definitely come at you guys with a lot more content and a lot more stuff coming up. So again, really appreciate all the support so far. But tell your friends, continue to spread the word for us, because we want to make this thing a thing. So PodRiver.com, and we just got a last second comment that from William Rivera on YouTube. He said 3 firsts, 1 second, and a third for Russ. Only way to get a deal done for a trade. No, they're not doing that, bro. The whole fact of the matter is, if they weren't going to do 4 first-round picks and 2 starters, including Khalil Mack, they're not going to take an extra second and third round. But I appreciate your comment, man. Thanks, William. Really appreciate you listening and commenting. Thanks for the input.
Wait a minute, he said what again?
He said 3 firsts, 1 second, and a third for Russ is the only way to get a deal done fair trade. First of all, that's not even close to a fair trade. I think Seattle gets fleeced. If they do that, I will personally go and drive up to Seattle and bring my man Russell and Sierra can sit in the shotgun and Russell can sit in the back. But anyways, William, I appreciate it, man, but I just don't think that's a thing. I think you gotta do better. And you know what? Maybe I don't know what Nick thinks, but maybe for Deshaun, maybe Deshaun, that will get you Deshaun, because apparently they've kind of walked back the fact that they need defensive starters out of that now. They basically said if they can get enough draft picks, specifically enough first-round picks, maybe they'll do it. But again, I think there's only a few teams equipped for that: the Jets, the Dolphins, possibly, but the Bears just aren't going to be in it. So again, William, appreciate it, my man.
I just don't think that the Bears are sold on Deshaun Watson.
True.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what
if they didn't draft him. If they didn't draft him when they had a shot to draft him, then why would they trade for him at this point? You know
exactly because you could have easily gotten him there at 2.
Yeah.
They tried Mitch. They thought Mitch was the guy. Mitch, for whatever reason, didn't work out.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a coaching issue than it is anything. It didn't work out. But then you're not going to rectify the mistake by saying, okay, well, since we messed up, here's 3 first-round draft picks, Khalil Mack and
Akeem Hicks,
Akeem Hicks, just for Russ. That doesn't make sense.
No,
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm saying. That's why I said earlier that I thought it was foolish that if that was the deal, especially if it was just the 3 first-round draft picks. Like, why wouldn't Seattle jump on that?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you're back in the first round this year because you traded your first-round draft pick for Jamal Adams last year, or so you don't have a pick this year because of the trade for Jamal Adams.
So you get back in at 20.
You could have jumped back in at 20, and then next year you're going to have 2 picks. Whether yours is high or the Bears is high, I mean, just because you have Russell Wilson, you never know where it's going to be.
Yeah.
But assumingly so, it would be somewhere between 18 and below. And then the year after that, you're going to have your own pick and a pick 18 and below. So you're essentially trading Russ. But even with that 20th pick, and you made mention of it earlier, Mac Jones could have fallen down there at 20. Maybe do you reach for a Kyle Trask? Is that a guy that you want? Because you're not going to get the top 4, but you never know. So I think Seattle, if that was the case, I think Seattle could have made that move and started all over again. But apparently they looks like they're not really balls enough to move on from Russell Wilson. And I don't think the Bears are interested in Deshaun Watson.
And let's be honest, Nick, they don't have a reason to move on from Russell. Like, at this point, why even move on from the guy? It doesn't really make sense. So, and Will Rivera jumped in too as well and said Giants and Galloway is a pickup. Thank God my G-man have no one wide receiver. So I'm assuming, he doesn't have enough. Yeah, which to me, Kenny maybe isn't a pure number 1, but dude, if you look at his numbers over the last couple of years, he got some pretty damn good numbers. Kenny does. I think they said that his first 4 years are like eerily similar to Calvin Johnson's first 4 years, which is pretty crazy to think about. I know that, they're passing a lot more in this league than they were in Calvin Johnson's first 4 years in the league. But damn, that's pretty crazy to think about that Kenny Galloway's even close to be on Megatron levels.
But at the same time, think about it like this too. The Detroit Lions are a team where at one point didn't have a 100-yard rusher in almost like 4 or 5 years.
True, yeah. They're always constantly behind and constantly trying to pass.
Constantly behind. Yeah. And Matthew Stafford is constantly throwing it. So and that's not taking anything away from Calvin Johnson, especially what's the year when he had, was it like 2,000 yards?
Yeah, close to 2,000 yards. But he the
other
thing
the record at the time for most catches in a year or some crazy like that.
Yeah. You have to take that into consideration, man. Like, even the people talk about Andy Dalton and saying, well, Andy Dalton, look at last year, it wasn't that bad. First of all, with all those weapons, those numbers should have looked better. Second of all, a lot of that is padded because they were throwing the ball a ton. Their defense sucked, and they were constantly throwing the ball. And let's be honest, dude, it's easy to get 8-yard, 10-yard, 15-yard catches on defenses when they're up by 15 or up by 20, and all they need to do is just make sure not to give up the big play, and you can pad your stats pretty easily on that. So all the people who are talking like Andy Dalton isn't as bad as you guys are making him out to be, and there's a few of those like Bears fans who are like, I think Andy Dalton is a serviceable guy. He's probably the best quarterback we've had since Cutler and this and that. This is just like Stockholm syndrome, like Stockholm syndrome, where it's like a kidnapper kidnaps somebody, and then the person that's been kidnapped starts to sympathize with their kidnapper. It's called Stockholm syndrome. We've been kidnapped by the Bears, and we're starting to now, sympathize with our kidnappers. You know what? I don't know. The Bears, maybe they just haven't had the right quarter. Maybe we're just not giving them the opportunity. No, listen, dude. Andy Dalton is a terrible pickup, no matter how you pick it up. But yeah, to go back to Will, that's a good point, man. We said it earlier in the show, and if you missed it, go back and listen to this. We were giving the Giants props because once they get Saquon back and their offensive line seems to be doing better, they added Kyle Rudolph, they added Galloway. And then he said, yeah, with Barkley back, Galloway, Shepard, Ingram, and this team should be in the playoff hunt. Absolutely, they should be in the playoff hunt. And not only that, they could end up being, if the Cowboys don't make a couple more moves here quickly, they could be the favorites for the division too.
I think Dallas's problems. Okay, Dallas's biggest problem was their health.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
they lost.
Nobody was healthy.
Yeah, that's true.
Dak was gone. Zeke was hurt on and off. The offensive line, which is pretty much the heart and soul of the Cowboys.
Offensive line.
Zach Martin was hurt. Lyle Collins was hurt. Those guys were hurt. And then defensively, because they didn't have a pass rush, it really, because remember they lost Byron Jones to Miami last year.
Yep. Yeah.
And so they didn't have
Ash and Jalen Smith were constantly hurt. Yeah.
Hurt. Sean Lee is forever
always
hurt.
Perpetually hurt.
And then so you had DeMarcus Lawrence that basically had to be like the pass rush guy, and when he wasn't getting to the quarterback, they were just tearing that defense apart. So yeah, I'm with you. I think the health of Dallas is big, but I think they need to make some defensive moves, especially at this point. Like Jerry Jones has to really think about replacing Sean Lee. I mean, Sean Lee's a good linebacker, but dude, when you're 4 weeks into the season, you're already dealing with head and neck issues. It's either going to be time to retire or it's time for Dallas just to move on and just find another middle linebacker by any means necessary. That means if you have to draft one, that means you have to whatever. Because, one thing we didn't talk about is Dak's huge flipping contract that he got. And he got hella bread. And maybe the best thing that could have happened to Dallas was him getting hurt. Because I think he actually improved his value with him being hurt, and with the same exact weapons, Andy Dalton was not as effective.
Yeah, and you're right. It's almost as if you thought you were good with me, and now without me, you suck. Because let's be honest, they were in every game that Dak was in. It's just their defense was terrible, and they were dropping the ball, and Ezekiel Elliott wasn't that great. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think they are in the conversation. But man, the Giants, from what they did last year, and I know they didn't have the greatest year themselves record-wise too, but if you look at some of the games that they played, you're like, wow, they're missing who? They're missing most of their guys. Colt McCoy was their quarterback for some stages of the season last season. They were still playing pretty darn good ball. So, yeah, I think the Giants have a lot to be excited about. And remember, the Eagles are on the way down. Washington, though, they are on their way up. Let's be honest, Ryan Fitzpatrick is not this, he's not the sexiest guy. He's going to be serviceable for you. But is anybody going to be really, really, super scared to face Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Washington football team next year? Probably not, because it's you know what? The blueprint has been kind of set forth that if the other team has a good defense, we just are going to beat you up on offense and try and at least just, outscore you with whatever we can, field position battles, stuff like that. So, awesome. Well, guys, again, mackandblack.com is the website. Check out podriver.com is the network. Again, guys, we've got lots of new shows coming soon. So, again, getting out of the rut here that we were in over the last year because of COVID. Really happy to be able to move on from there. So, podriver.com. Check out local level. Again, next week we're live at Reps. And right before our show, you won't see, I believe it won't be live, but you'll be able to eventually see some of the interviews that Steve does for the local aldermans, which will be live, which is awesome. That's great. So yeah, guys, we'll definitely share that out from our page, and Steve, make sure to do that. But we'll share it out to make sure you guys can check that out, because that's really interesting. I think with everybody getting super into the government and the politics in general over the last year, is when it comes down to it, if you want to be more involved, you have to be more involved in the local aspect. And yeah, Steve's pointing out, all politics are local, and that's 100% true. When it comes down to it, your local politicians are the ones that you have to be worried about, because they're the ones who have the direct effect on your lives. So I really think that's an awesome platform for the local aldermen here in this area, and yeah, I think that's going to be great. So again, check them out before our show next week. Sorry, Nick, jump in there.
I'm being asked, what do I think it would take for our Knicks to get Lonzo and JJ Redick with all the salary?
I completely forgot that JJ Redick was even available. Why haven't the Knicks jumped on that yet?
Frank, Knox,
Mitchell. I know you didn't want to say it, but I had to say it for you. That might be too much. You know what? That might be too much. How about
I'm
one of your picks?
up.
One of your picks, Dallas's pick, Knox and Ntilikina. Do it. That
Bingo.
You got to do that if you're New Orleans.
I would easily give them Dallas's pick. Dude, Dallas's pick, as far as I'm concerned, if they're going to start playing better basketball, is a bargaining chip.
Sure. Because like what, 20 dude. At this point in the NBA draft, 20 and above is a crapshoot. You're just going to be taking a shot on a guy anyways.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anything below 20 at this point, it's pretty much just, all right, guys, let's see who's going to win the raffle today. And today's winner is Emmanuel Quickly of Kentucky.
And for every one of those guys, there's 4 more of the guys that you will never hear about ever again. And that's just the reality of the league and how saturated it's become with the one done deal with NCAA. It's just like we're seeing it right now. Like Kobe White's a perfect example of that, dude. If Kobe White would have just stayed in school for at least another year or two, he would have been in a really good position. But right now, teams are really, really abusing Kobe White. Like when we were facing, I think we were facing, and New York did it too when they faced us, but they know now that he doesn't have the best handles. He isn't the best distributor of the ball. Not really the best guy bringing up the ball up the court. So they're just full court pressing this guy and creating turnovers. He's not the best when it comes to being able to distribute, and he got benched as a result. And then people are like, "This guy sucks." No, he doesn't suck. He's barely old enough to drink. So like,
right.
There's a balance there where it's like a lot of these guys that you think quote unquote suck because they aren't superstars at 18, 19, 20 years old, it really has a lot more to do with the fact that it's hard to develop players this young in the league. And that's why I think the G League, coming back and being a lot more of a factor, and again, just growing the G League as a whole moving forward is going to be huge because, dude, you can't develop 19, 20, 21-year-olds when you're trying to win games. Like, it's hard to do that. So, again, Kobe White, like people were ready to give up on him. No, was he worth that pick? I don't know, man. Now that you look back on it and you say, damn, we could have had X, Y, and Z. Tyler Herro was on the board, a couple of other guys on the board when we selected Kobe, but he's not garbage, at the end of the day too. So, Will, to answer your question, sounds like Nick is thinking what? Frank Nitti.
Frank Nitti. As much as I don't really want to trade Frank Nitti because I think defensively he works out better than with Thibodeau. However, Lonzo can be just as good defensively and can hit threes at a better clip. So you can give me Lonzo any day of the week, and JJ Redick is the shooter I'm asking for. That's a guy right there who's a shooter. Think about it like this. Let's say if we did get Lonzo and JJ for the price I just said, which would be Kevin Knox, who at this point is out of the rotation, probably needs a new home, Frank Nitti, who could use a new home, and Dallas's first-round draft pick. You're going to tell me that the Knicks starting lineup could be Lonzo, JJ, RJ, Julius, and Mitchell when he's healthy. Then coming off the bench, you're going to tell me it's going to be Noel, Obi. Oh, you know what? I forgot about what's his name. Okay, hold on. Scratch that. Because, never mind. Don't scratch that. Nah, scratch that. Because I'm forgetting about Reggie Bullock, too. I can't forget about Reggie.
Yeah, he's played his ass off this year.
It's gonna take some maneuvering. I think it could work, but you don't want Alec Burke to lose minutes. You don't want Reggie Bullock to lose minutes. RJ Barrett is playing out of his mind for what it's worth. Well, is playing much better, so he's not going to lose any minutes. So
they'll just have to play smaller. You have to play a lot smaller if that were the deal.
Right?
Yeah.
I think we'll figure it out. But I think if you make that deal, it really gives what's his name, Tom Thibodeau, some really good options. You have a facilitator, a guy who can shoot threes, and a really good defender in Lonzo Ball. You have a sharpshooter in JJ Redick, and even JJ Redick could, for what it's worth, even come off the bench as well. You know what I'm saying? He could come off the bench. You would have, because we still got Derrick Rose. I don't know. They'll figure it out. That's the best I can say. They'll figure it out. But I would take the deal. I definitely take Lonzo in a heartbeat. But if we had to take JJ Redick as well, he fits in because he's that shooter that I've been saying I think the Knicks really need.
I don't know why I didn't even think of him. He's been on the block too, and I didn't even think of him. But I think honestly, dude, I know Lonzo's a great player and you guys could use him, but like even if it was just JJ and you guys said, you know what,
okay with that too.
You just here take Frank Nitty or take Kevin Knox in the second round pick or even Dallas's first, fuck it, like just give me a bona fide shooter that I can depend on, will be available and ready to take shots when I need them. That's huge. And JJ's a glue guy too. You have to remember you need a couple of those guys in the locker room, and he's one of those guys. So that would be a big pickup. I don't know why I didn't think of that one. He's relatively cheap too. Like it's not like New Orleans going to ask for the bank for him. You know, it's just going to
first round draft picks for him, right?
No, yeah, you can get him pretty easily. So thanks, Will, for jumping in, man. Really appreciate it. And next week, guys, like I said, we'll be at Reps. So definitely please join us there as far as listening and watching, and then obviously please. Check out Reps online. Reps Place in Rolling Meadows. If you look them up, you can find their menu online. They got a killer menu with lots of selection, and you'll be able to order in or whatever you guys want to do. Check out the situation next week. But either way, after the local level live podcast, we will be on. So again, PodRiver.com is the website for that. And also we talked about we have some great new podcasts coming. One of them, The Moment You Knew. It's just really cool and excellent interviews with interesting people that you probably know. So that's going to be a really interesting one that's coming to PodRiver. So again, PodRiver.com. Subscribe to PodRiver on YouTube for the new shows weekly. That's the network that we're on YouTube. And if you want to keep up with us, me and Oso, MackandBlack.com. And again, subscribe, like, and share on all platforms. If you're subscribing, liking, and sharing on one platform, do it on another one this week or whatever. If you haven't joined us on iTunes yet, go ahead and do that. And like I said, I will kiss your face one day. And then check out rmtalk.com too. That's for the local updates that we were talking about. RM like Rolling Meadows, talktalk.com. And again, next week live at Reps. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe now. Hit that damn subscribe button. Smash that like button, as the kids would say. Smash the bell button for notifications too. But otherwise,
Ding,
Nick,
ding.
ding, right, exactly. Nick, anything else, man?
Nah, man. Other than that, go Knicks. I just learned that Jack Johnson, the defensive man for the New York Rangers, is officially out for the year with a core injury. He's going to have core surgery. I don't know how I feel about that. Some tells me it's good. Some tells me it's addition by subtraction. Some tells me we're going to miss him. Yeah. So we'll see what that works out for. But they're playing the Capitals right now as we speak. Okay. And plus, UConn was playing Maryland. We'll see what happens with that. And then also, as a matter of fact, I think I got the score right here.
Yeah, give us an update.
Where are you? Oh, where are you? Oh, where are you? Let's see.
Where are you?
I had North Carolina winning. Yeah, dude, Maryland's winning by 2 right now in the middle of the first. So the game's still early. And I did have Oregon beating VCU, so I will not be on the 6 o'clock.
You won't be on the. Okay, good. Yeah, we're not going to lose you to police custody, so that's good to hear.
Exactly.
And I think by the time we're on next week, we'll be at the very least in Elite 8 category, if not know the Final Four, because
at least
Elite 8. So cool. All right, guys. Again, really appreciate everyone's support and everything like that. Like, share, subscribe, everything like that I've been telling you. But really appreciate all the support. And for Nick in Texas, Steve in the booth, I'm Mack. Peace.
Peace.